out of here. And fundamentals.
Watch it.
On 93.5.
Watch it.
And 107.5.
Boom, baby.
The Fan.
You want to know one thing, Kevin, that I was thinking about on the way in that is, I guess, kind of an unfair thought that I've had about a professional athlete for a number of years. Is
this going to be James Harden?
Yes. James Harden, who, by the way, the combination between the balding on top and the beard, he kind of looks like the caricature of Ben Franklin that the Sixers use from time to time in terms of the distribution of hair. But I always felt like, especially when he was kind of bounced around there from Brooklyn and Oak City and everything else, I always felt like James Harden was one of those guys that didn't play defense, just kind of went out and got numbers for James Harden and didn't really, just was kind of there. And I guess I haven't necessarily publicly recognized it, not like he's listening to this program and needs some sort of affirmation, but I think there's a level of maturation and really, I think, respectable nature about James Harden in the fact that when he has gone now, like in particular in Philadelphia, he appears to me to be a guy that is totally comfortable and capable of being a number two and just being a complimentary piece until something happens where he's needed and he has to elevate his game to carry his team. And he, at that point, has that level to turn up the wick and do it. And he did that last night. 45 for Philly. They, I guess you'd say, upset Boston to take a 1-0 lead. But I'll give him credit. Like, he's a guy that I always kind of thought was just one of those, like, just wants to go out and get his numbers and get his money and go home. And I think he's more of a team player than he's been given credit.
Did you catch his wardrobe walking into the arena last night?
That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Everything nice.
I thought you were going there first.
Well,
you're a big fashion guy. It looked like he was going to the Met Gala.
He had on. I'm going to go back to fashion. To me, is a lot like the foodie stuff. I have told you before. You could open a restaurant if you were in Paris. Like if I moved to Indianapolis from Paris and I was 100% French, and I opened a restaurant, Taste of Paris, and I opened it on Mass Ave, and I literally served long cylindrical, or like long rectangular, I guess, china plates, and I slabbed 2 things of Shiba cat food, just the gelatinous Shiba cat food, right on the plate, and put a drizzle of balsamic and a little leaf on it. And
plop of mayo, maybe, just to spice it up a little.
No mayo. No. That ruins the whole thing. But then I call it, like 7 degree. There are people that would be like, oh, it's amazing. It's so artistic. Just because they feel you're supposed to think that, right? Because it's, boy, this guy seems cultured. And like the same thing with wearing a pair of pants that look like something off of a scarecrow, and then I don't know what James Harden had on, but people are like, he just looks so fashionable. No, he looks like an idiot. But because he makes $40 million a year, it's assumed that that's really fashionable.
Those look like pairs of jeans I had back in the day when like Jinko jeans were in.
That's that, or I thought he was like going on a trip to Antarctica. Mm-hmm. Maybe those were his snow pants that he was rocking there. Certainly didn't look like an idiot on the floor.
No doubt.
At all. And this, along with Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry, we have seen now some pretty darn special playoff performances, and that was an upset. There's no doubt about it. The Celtics were a 10.5-point favorite, no Joel Embiid. And I think it's fair to ask, considering how Harden has looked in recent years, does he still have nights like that in him? He has played certainly second fiddle, third fiddle to, teams he's been on here as of late, and with Embiid out, and that's not good news at all, I think, for the Sixers. Granted, they just went up 1-0, but the fact that they were off for a week and Joel Embiid still didn't play in game one, I don't know if they can win this series, but boy, what a performance. And what a just awful turnover by Malcolm Brogdon late in that game. It was one of those passes where it's like, was he throwing that game? Did Brogdon have the Sixers money line in that one? His only turnover of the night, Brogdon throws it away with the Celtics up 1 late. And then obviously Harden makes a step back right in Al Horford's face there. 76ers take game 1 on the road. And then when you see the Nuggets Suns score, you're kind of like, wait, is that just, did they only play 3 quarters last night? Is it 97-87?
I only lasted 3 quarters.
97-87. Nikola Jokic, 39-16. Chris Paul exited early with a groin injury. The Nuggets are up 2-0 in that series.
The Nuggets, Kevin, for a team that we don't talk a lot about, the Nuggets have, Jamal Murray had 10 last night. He could go for 40 any night. Aaron Gordon, we talk nothing about. He's a really good player for them, and he does a lot of different things on the wing. I think he's a really good talent. Jeff Green's like 106 years old and still gives them some minutes. I mean, they've got a nice team. You don't hear a lot about the Nuggets, and now you kind of understand in the years when the Pacers were putting together 55 and 60 win teams what the rest of the country must have felt like about the Indiana Pacers. That's how you feel about the Denver Nuggets, right? You're like, well, these guys are actually pretty good.
Percentage of our listening audience that can name the Nuggets head coach?
2%.
2%?
Or 2 total people.
Well, it might be the same.
Percentage of this studio that could name the Nuggets head coach.
I can. Mark?
I'm blanking on the first name. It's Malone, though.
It is.
Mike
Malone.
Good old Mike. Good old Mike Malone. Nuggets up 2-0. Tonight we'll get game 2 from Madison Square Garden. Heat and Knicks. And the Lakers and Warriors will kick things off. Good Tuesday morning to you. It certainly looks much better outside than it did yesterday. I thought I saw yesterday the coldest May 1st in over 100 years.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Global warming, what? Come on now.
Well, actually, I can tell you, Kevin, I just got done studying the difference between global warming, climate change, and temperature. We won't get into that, but yeah, it was not pretty yesterday.
We will have Pat Fitzgerald, head coach of Northwestern, joining us at 9 o'clock. Colts took 2 of his players in round 4 and round 5 over the weekend, so we'll chat with him about that. And then Will Hewlett, the quarterback's coach for Anthony Richardson, he is going to join us here coming up at 8:30.
Can I tell Pat Fitzgerald, I'm not going to say that I have a man crush on him, but can I tell him that he just seems like a cool dude?
Yeah, I have heard good things about him.
You know what I mean? Like, he just seems like Pat Fitzgerald seems to me, and would it be creepy if I told him this? He just seems like a guy that if I had a son that played football, that I would be thrilled if he was going to play for Pat Fitzgerald. I like his program.
Not a lot of winning, though.
I know. They've
4 draft picks and 1 win last year.
My fake son would like to commit to your team, sir.
What's that?
Do you have a spot for Boo?
Yeah.
Could Boo run out of the
You
tunnel?
are the Wildcats. I've got a cat of my own.
There you go.
I'm kind of a cat dad, if you know what that means.
Is Pat Fitzgerald the longest?
I forgot, by the way, Thursday, Boo and I have an appointment at Olin Mills. We're getting photos taken.
Oh.
Should I do the library backdrop or the fake wooden fence backdrop?
Whatever Boo wants. As long as the coupon works.
Is Pat Fitzgerald the longest Big Ten coach not named Kirk Ferentz? Or am I forgetting about
Okay,
somebody?
that's a good question. Let's think about this for a second. Certainly Nebraska, no, because they change every 8 months. Rutgers and Maryland. How long has the guy been at Rutgers? 5 years? 4 years?
Wow, Shannon's been there that long.
Or not Rutgers, I'm sorry, Maryland. How long's Maryland had their coach?
Loxley, yeah, probably right around there.
Rutgers is like in the third year, but we're not sure they're in the Big Ten. Penn State.
Harbaugh? How long has he been there?
Yeah, Harbaugh.
I guess how long has Fitzgerald been there? Probably start there. I mean, it's got to be over a decade, right?
I'm looking.
I mean, people threw his name around for an NFL job.
Second longest, someone just texted me.
Yeah, he's
Chris
been head
Mitchell.
coach since 2006.
Yeah, so it's got to be,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Ferentz and then him. I don't even know who would be third on that list. Maybe it is Harbaugh. Maybe it is Franklin. Hell, Tom Allen's coached at IU for 6 years now. Tom Allen's got to be in the top half.
I was surprised that Indiana didn't get a single player drafted. Weren't you? Didn't it seem like the law? I mean, you get one go late?
Well, you'd think. I saw Washington didn't have a player drafted. They won 10 games last year. Michael Penix going to be drafted pretty high next year, sounds like.
Well, he'll be 31, though, right?
He will be on the older side. I believe he's in the Will Levis camp.
And he also is coming. He's got an injury history. You got to wonder if that will hurt him. He's been a wonderful player. He's going to be a great player for them again this year. University of Washington football stadium, by the way, not a super high architecture. It's a
awesome view.
Have you been to it? It's
just seen on TV.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You go into it and you look to your right, and there's Lake Washington. Seattle is so pretty and so cool. I've always liked UW, as they call it out there. Always liked it.
I love how much lighter it is now in the morning.
Oh, are you kidding me?
This is glorious.
Night and day, literally, or day and night. It does make a huge difference, and I think that I think for me, Kevin, the month of May, not necessarily right now, but once the track gets going and things warm up a little bit, that week of practice and everything else, and really everyone turns the page towards the Indy 500. It's a pretty full dance card, and yet it's easy because it's light out. That makes all the difference in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's supposed to be, I think, really nice the rest of this week. So good news for those taking part in the mini coming up this weekend. Mark, we're going to have Doug Bowles, you said, on every Monday here in the month of May?
Every Monday now through the day after the race.
Nice. Looking forward to that conversation. Doug Bowles was on with us yesterday, if you missed that. Again, nothing on track out there until late next week with the Grand Prix coming up a week from Saturday. And then 2 weeks from today is when things will start on the oval. On the Colts front, Anthony Richardson and the Colts rookies will, I guess in Richardson's case, he'll return to Indy, seeing how he's already been here once as a member of the Colts for the opening press conference on Friday. They'll be back Thursday night to start a rookie minicamp this weekend. So that will be Anthony Richardson's first time on the field coming up on Friday. And then starting next week is then they get reacclimated with the veterans. And that will be how the rest of the offseason program really goes for the Colts. We can get into more of the draft picks today, some of those that we did not cover yesterday, and certainly look ahead to, I think, what will be a pretty highly anticipated rookie minicamp this weekend.
Last night, or yesterday, I should say, you had mentioned not exactly the best day, kind of gross out. But last night, Mike Thompson and I began our month-long program of Beyond the Bricks. Started at 8 o'clock last night. We'll run again tonight at 8 o'clock. As a matter of fact, in tonight's program, we do, or will do, what we probably will do every year that we're fortunate enough to do this particular show, Beyond the Bricks, which is a look at kind of the audio archives, excuse me, of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Indianapolis 500 history as told through radio clips and old commercials and things like that. It was actually 46 years ago today that the world lost Sid Collins, who was kind of the original voice of the Indy 500, not even kind of, the architect of the IMS radio network and the original play-by-play chief announcer for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway radio network, passed away 46 years ago today. So we kind of take a look back at Sid Collins, some of his greatest moments, best interviews that he did, because he always had different dignitaries coming in. That's tonight at 8 o'clock. So we did the show last night, and then I watched the penultimate episode of A Million Little Things. Did you tell me your wife watches that, Kevin?
Yeah, she does. We actually went the other way. We watched that 100 Days to Indy last night.
What'd you think?
I thought it was fine. I didn't blow me away by any means, but I've always said this about the With the Next Pick series for the Colts, Hard Knocks, whatever. Give me behind-the-scenes content. That is great. It's unique. It's not stuff that you're going to get. There were several times throughout the episode where Maddie is watching it and said, "Oh, wow, I like Scott McLaughlin. Oh, wow, I like Scott McLaughlin's wife." Or, "Oh, I didn't realize that was part of race weekend." And that's all that matters.
Yep.
It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter certainly to you, Jake, because you are in the 0.1 percentile when you're talking about IndyCar, whatever, fans, knowledge base, et cetera, et cetera. She did mention to me, this content seems a little bit more wholesome than Drive to Survive with the F1. And certainly from entertainment value, it was much more dialed back than the glitz and the glamour of F1. And part of that, I think, is just IndyCar. But I thought it was, I thought it was good. Again, nothing crazy, but give me behind-the-scenes content and hopefully continue to kind of showcase those drivers on a little bit more of a outside of the helmet level.
And then you see last night the news that the Vice Network, which is the one that puts together that program, filed bankruptcy yesterday.
I did see
So
that.
they, who knows what that means. Bankruptcy, I think a lot of people hear bankruptcy for a company and they think, that's it, they're shutting the doors right now. And
It's like Bally Sports we saw.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like, well, no, they're just reshuffling. I do not know, because I know it's an understandable and a common question of what does this mean for that show moving forward. They've got 4 episodes already in the can. They've only scheduled to do 6. So
Every Thursday, is that right?
yeah, and I don't know exact Thursdays at I believe it's 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central on CW, and then it goes on to the app. I don't know what it means.
And that's how we watch, by the way. I was confused originally how I'm going to watch. The app is free, so as long as you're willing to sit through a handful of commercials every 10 minutes, that's pretty easy for me. So that's how we consumed it.
Yeah, but McLaughlin, I thought, we know just from having him on, he's a pretty cool guy, right?
Yeah, agreed. But, again, Jake, that is a little 10-minute segment, once. Hell, we've had him on once. And, obviously people aren't necessarily consuming that part of it. But, his story of, marrying American, they really have taken him kind of under his wing as just kind of being his son here and traveling to the races and all of that. That was really cool. And I think more of the buildup around the 500 will resonate a little bit more with the common fan. But, yeah, I thought it was a good watch.
That sun is coming in hot.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to cold.
God,
Mark,
it's so much better looking.
Is
than
this the
yesterday.
earliest that we're going to have to pull the drapes?
Well,
7,
I remember
16?
I asked you to do it one time. You're like, I'm doing things.
I'm doing a radio show, Mark.
What am I doing?
I do live radio. What's that?
What am I doing?
I don't know
Playing
exactly
Candy
what,
Crush?
I don't know what you are
Without
doing,
Mark,
actually.
we don't go on air.
All I know is, Mark, we go on the air at the beginning of the segment, right? And then occasionally you push fun buttons, and then you, as far as I know, you're eating cereal until we go to break, right?
I don't push fun buttons. What are you talking about?
You're over there, and then when we tell you to, you push a button again, and then we go to break, right?
Radio Monkey. Yeah, that's me.
Mark, I think of you much, much higher than that.
Well, look,
Well, thank you, Kevin.
you know what someone said to me yesterday? They said, the thing about your show I like is that Mark is pretty funny because he mostly, now this was a listener vantage point or interpretation. They said Mark, more often than not, teams up with one of the two of us, Kevin, to gang up on the other one. Now, which one do you think that they said that he more often than not sides with in going against the other one?
That's a good question.
Mark, which do you feel was the answer?
Oh, boy.
I think Mark does a nice job with.
I'd like to say I'm very partisan.
Yeah.
I go both ways on that. I probably side with you more though, Jake. I would guess.
Kevin?
Yeah, I guess Jake.
That is correct. They said Mark more often teams up with you, Jake.
Well, Kevin usually likes to play like by the book, like let's stay on track here. So I like to a little bit of chaos.
Now,
every
it-
now and
My
then.
boss tells me once a week, continue to steer the ship, and I go, have you
Kevin-
seen the
Kevin
waters
usually
that I'm
likes
on
to-
here?
Yeah, wait a minute. Now, somebody just sent me this. See, Jake, this is why you were Larry David. What? I don't understand. What did I just do that was Larry David? Can someone please elaborate on what I just did that's Larry David? Okay.
I don't know.
Now, here's the thing. When in terms of Kevin being the mature one in the group that keeps us on track, in the 19 months or however long we've done this Dog and Pony show, we've had one person take their shirt off, right? To the horror, might I add, of our YouTube viewing audience.
I did not get that impression from the audience at all. I did not at all
tell you.
see the horror.
A lot of people
that.
are using that for 12-month calendars now.
Yeah,
Mr. January through December.
We had one
Right.
person that has brought in donuts and passed them out on the air, which I'm not complaining, but
There's been reports of
in
maybe an appearance on Playgirl.
a little bit of.
Whoa.
Do they still do that magazine?
I wasn't going to reveal that, but I felt like it was necessary.
Okay, there's been one time where beer was twice actually where beer's been consumed on the air, right?
I think maybe a third time.
Okay, that also wasn't, I mean, was that Mr. Wild
that
and
not
Crazy
allowed?
over here? Oh no, it's encouraged, but still. And then I'm trying to think of what else where you've gone rogue, quite frankly, and then I'm the one that gets blamed for it.
Oh, when he dresses up like around, he has the turkey hat.
The turkey hat is kind of cool, though. When I was in Buc-ee's on Sunday, there's a Buc-ee's in Alabama right across from the racetrack. We went in at 7:30 on a Sunday, and it's already literally, it's unbelievable. There are 800,000 people living in the state of Alabama. At 7:30 on a Sunday, 620,000 of them are at church. The other 180,000 are at Buc-ee's. It's crazy.
Sunday ritual.
That's right. But they sold Buc-ee's hats that are. Have you seen the hats?
I mean, I'm sure I've seen them.
Mark's got a onesie.
Yeah.
They have the hats that tie around like the little bonnet hats, and it's got the Buc-ee head.
Well, summertime's coming.
Almost brought it for you, Kevin.
Summertime's coming. They have Buc-ee's like swimsuits and stuff.
Oh, perfect.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Sunscreen.
Okay.
Got it all. Flip-flops, floaties.
They know what they're
I did
doing.
see yesterday and I guess this happened over the weekend as well. I saw Purdue got a basketball commit from a big dude, and I feel like anytime you see that, you're like, oh, this guy's 7'3", and he's from, Sweden or somewhere. Raleigh Burgess for Purdue, a 4-star top 100 kid from the Cincinnati area. A lot of Big Ten offers. Texas I saw on his offer list. Indiana on his offer list. A little bit more of a, sounds like a stretch guy than just a back to the basket. So the Big Ten pipeline, or I should say the big man pipeline continues. Maybe a little bit of a different style, though, in Burgess. And then I saw Indiana got a commit, Jake, over the weekend. Did you say they got a Miami kid to commit to them? Like a Miami Hurricane in the portal.
I did not see that, actually. How did I miss that?
Yeah, Anthony Harris, big guy. Don't think he was more of a rotational big guy for them. But yeah, he is transferring to Indiana. So Indiana's been a little bit more big man heavy. Was it Anthony Harris? I could be totally wrong on that last name.
Well, who's the kid they had? And I apologize that I always forget names. I'm getting older. Who was the center they had that transferred? It was either from Central Florida to Indiana to South Florida or vice versa.
Michael Dewar.
Yeah, like
Anthony Walker. Yes, Colt linebacker Anthony Walker.
There were times, to be quite frank, last year that I thought, or 2 years ago, the year after Dewar left, there were times where I thought to myself, okay, he might not have set the world afire, but there were times that they could have used him.
Yeah, I think especially in the Big Ten, just because you do face a Hunter Dickinson or a Zach Edey or some of those guys. But
Anthony Walker, by the way, 6'9", 210. He's out of Baltimore, went to Brewster Academy. They are, by the way, the Brewster's Millions is their nickname. 2 points and 1 rebound per game. He appeared in, let's see how many games he played. He played in 37 games, averaging 2.8 points and 1.2 rebounds per game.
Yeah, obviously Miami's front court had some pretty strong
for sure
players, and so now he will come to Bloomington. And if you look at IU, they've really kind of retooled the front court, and they had to with Trace Jackson-Davis and Race Thompson leaving. So Anthony Walker will join Peyton Sparks, the Ball State transfer. And obviously, Malik Renew is going to be a huge part of just second-year development.
You kind of started to see it, didn't you, in the last quarter of the season?
Yeah, you definitely saw a little bit more from him. We're a month into the college basketball offseason, and it is the same storyline that I think IU entered the offseason with of where are your guards, where are your wings. I think that will be something to continue to monitor. I know we said this last week. It's probably not a big pool of candidates, but I do think as we get closer to the NBA draft, the lottery's coming up in a few weeks, the NBA draft combine's in a few weeks, guys have to eventually decide by the end of the month if they're going to return to college basketball. You do see some of these guys enter the draft, but then also say, if I do return to college, I'm going to go into the transfer portal. Can Indiana try and tap into any of that group? Because I think, obviously, from a portal standpoint, they still need a good amount of help, whereas Purdue brings back a whole lot, and then we've seen the one Purdue addition from Southern Illinois.
I don't agree with this at all, by the way. Jake, you're Larry David because you way over-argue your points with no self-awareness. I think I'm very self-aware.
Well, by calling you Larry David, they're calling you George Costanza, because George Costanza is based on Larry David.
Yeah,
so would you call yourself a George Costanza type?
I would think that's viewed in a little bit more of a positive light than Larry David.
Okay. Now, hold on. George is an idiot, right?
Yeah, that's why when people on Curb Your Enthusiasm say they hated George because he was such an idiot, Larry gets upset because George is me. I'm George. That's it.
Is Curb going another season?
Oh, yeah.
But George has no game. I ooze game.
No one who has game has ever said I ooze game. That has never been.
I get up.
Before.
I get up.
You think James Harden walked into the locker room last night? It was like, I ooze game.
I get up in the morning. And sometimes when I'm on my way to brush my teeth, I trip and I say, "What was that I just tripped over?" And I look down and I realize it's excess game that's fallen off of me because I already have so much.
Dear Lord. Pray for Boo. If you guys believe in prayer, please add Boo to your list.
I don't know if you guys know this or not, but over the course of my career, I've done okay. I don't mean, and I'm not talking about career-wise. You know what I mean? I mean, we know.
Oh, geez.
I'm retired now.
Where are you going with that?
Happily retired, but I did okay.
Pat Fitzgerald going to join us coming up at 9 o'clock, and 2 Colts draft picks.
Oh, this is awkward.
From Northwestern. Yeah, I didn't know really how to move on from that one. Will Hewlett, a lot has been made, and understandably, about Anthony Richardson and the passing development of him. So his quarterback's coach, who he's worked with now for the past few months, he will be on with us coming up at 8:30. Again, a much better-looking day to start here in Indianapolis. Still think it's going to be chilly before things warm up the rest of the week. Kevin Bowe and Jake Query, Mark Dykton, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Forum is an equal opportunity lender. NMLS number 469848.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The outfit walked into the arena was outrageous, and so was the performance by James Harden last night. How about TD Garden the last two nights, guys? They watched that performance after the Bruins on Sunday.
Oh, boy.
Weep for Boston fans. It's something this city certainly will never do and has never done.
That city's got enough championships at the moment.
James Harden last night. The Sixers were a 10.5-point underdog. Harden had 45 points, and this was the eventual game winner.
Difference of 2 seconds, game clock and shot clock. Harden sizing up Horford. It's a three. Good! Harden's got 45! Timeout, Boston!
Jake, I watch every one of these playoff games, and just hearing that sound, the defense chant and the road player silencing the crowd, and I think, when will the Pacers experience that again?
You know what that... 2 years, by the way.
Gotta get in the playoffs next year, right?
Do you know what that sounded like when the ball goes right through the bottom of the net? I hate saying it.
Oh, Mayo?
But it's a familiar sound. As a matter of fact, play the clip again from Kevin Harlan.
Difference of 2 seconds, game clock and shot clock. Harden sizing up Horford. It's a three. Good!
That sound of it going right through the net
45.
sounds vaguely familiar. There we go. Doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Malcolm Brogdon, 1 turnover in 33 minutes last night. It was a big one late with the Celtics up 1. Just really threw the ball right to Tyrese Maxey. Maxey and Anthony Melton were outstanding for the Sixers. Again, no Joel Embiid. Philly wins game 1 on the road. The second game last night, the Suns, they are now down 2-0 to the Nuggets, 97-87. Yes, that is a final score. Nikola Jokic, 39-16 in that one. And looking ahead to tonight, we'll see if the Knicks can even up that series at 1-1 as they lost game 1 at home. And then the Lakers and the Warriors get things started. You guys going Lakers or Warriors?
In terms of who I'd like to see win or who I think will win?
Who do you think will win the series?
I will actually take Golden State. Although I said at the beginning of the playoffs, Lakers are going to win the West. I guess I got to stick by that.
Mark?
I will take the Warriors.
Okay.
He's on fire!
Okay.
What? That should be the new sound.
Somebody yesterday also said to me, they're like, hey, Kevin was talking about how gross the mayonnaise was, but didn't he do 4 sips of it?
Yeah, he did.
Again, someone had to sacrifice for this town to get Will Levis to a different town.
Yeah, but now we might be doing mayo shots on a Monday after
If the Titans beat the Colts with Will Levis under center, we have to drink a full cup of mayo in coffee.
God. How about this question?
Colts schedule coming out next Thursday, by the way.
How about this question? Between the two, not knowing, okay, you got to take into consideration rotation, et cetera, okay? In the 2 games that the Colts and Titans see one another next year, which will have the higher cumulative passing yardage, Anthony Richardson or Will Levis?
I'm curious to see how Tennessee plays that one. Don't they start Levis, but the Tannehill contract? I
think Tannehill starts.
God, really?
But, I mean...
Could you imagine that Colts radio broadcast if Will Levis leads the Titans past the Colts?
No.
Possession into the end zone
Mark, I wish people could visibly see Mark's laughter every time he plays.
Rick Venturi, big Will Levis fan, by the way.
Possession into the end zone
Major League Baseball from yesterday. Mark, Cubs 5-1 winners there. Guardians beat the Yankees by 1. Reds lost to the Padres 8-3 on that. And thank you, Mark, for your sincere comments there. I don't think any of our teams played.
Well, where are you going to go?
Okay, here's the better question.
Day on baseball,
in Major League Baseball right now, and we'll do it kind of rapid fire here. In Major League Baseball, we're going to see how close you guys can come to telling me right now who the division leaders are. American League East, your teams to choose from are Boston, Toronto, Tampa, Baltimore, and the Yankees. Tampa is correct, 23-6. AL Central, teams to choose from are Minnesota, Detroit, Cleveland, Royals, and White Sox.
Go Twins.
Minnesota's
correct, 17-12. AL West, teams of which to choose from are the Rangers, Angels, Astros, Athletics, and Mariners.
What's the Rangers at one point, so I'll go there.
The Mariners.
Kevin is correct. The Rangers at 17-11. National League East, teams to choose from. Philadelphia, Atlanta, Miami, the Mets, and the Nationals.
Braves.
Yeah, let's go Atlanta.
Braves are 19-10, correct. The NL Central, teams to choose
Pirates,
from.
baby.
Pirates.
Pirates at 20-9. And lastly, the NL West. You choose from the San Diego Padres, the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, the Giants, and the Rockies.
Dodgers.
I guess.
Kev? Dodgers at 17-13. But don't look now, but the Baltimore Orioles, 19-9 for cute fella. 19-9. Kevin, in our bid, Mark, in our bid for the PBR, your Diamondbacks 16-13.
Mm-hmm.
3.5 game lead for the six-pack for
You
cute fella.
you didn't mention my team.
The Athletics, 6-23. They're 11.5 back. They are 3-7 in their last 10.
11.5 back. Okay. All right.
11.5 back of the Rangers, by the way,
We can do this.
who have the worst record amongst divisional leaders in baseball.
Pat
They're
Fitzgerald.
the worst division in baseball, 11.5 back.
Pat Fitzgerald at 9 o'clock, Northwestern head coach. Couple Colts draft picks. Will Hewlett, the QB coach for Anthony Richardson here over the past few months. He's coming up in less than an hour. We'll get more into the Colts draft on the other side. Again, it is a sunny but a chilly start to this Tuesday here in Indy. Kevin and Corey on 93.5, 107.5. The Fan.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
One of the great songs of all time.
The legend lives on
From the Chippewa on down to the big lake they call Gitchagumi. Gordon Lightfoot passing away yesterday, I believe 74 years old. Is that right, Mark?
I think 84.
Yeah, I thought
Or 84, sorry. The Canadian folk singer passing away yesterday. I did not realize two things about Gordon Lightfoot, who, just one of the staples of like early backseat of my mom's car, driving, doing errands, getting groceries. That was back when WIBC was playing music. That was one of the songs you would have heard on the radio. But Gordon Lightfoot, his other two songs, one was Carefree Highway. Until like 2 years ago, I always thought it was Every Highway. And it's Carefree Highway. Did not know that. And then Sundown, which is another one of his great songs. Also, I did not realize until of recent vintage that song was written about Gordon Lightfoot's ex-girlfriend, who was the same woman that essentially gave John Belushi his fatal dose of the cocktail that killed him, essentially. And Gordon Lightfoot wrote that song about that, and I'm like, well, that's not really an uplifter.
Wow, I had no idea that.
Yeah, Sundown.
It was
I
quite
think
the
it's a shame.
quite the social media support for Gordon Lightfoot.
I think
yesterday.
I mean, I think there are a lot of people.
I guess I would. This sounds bad. I would not have guessed that.
Totally understood. I mean, I get why you would say that, right?
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that I think Gordon Lightfoot was one of those performers that you don't meet anybody who would say that was their favorite performer, but he had 2 or 3 songs that are just kind of consistent drop songs in the memory of a lot of people's, like, of that era, that ilk of the mid-'70s, for sure.
Jake, we went over several Colts draft picks yesterday. Of the names on the list, any of them interest you that maybe we have not gone over yet from the 12-man group?
I think the one that to me is of the most intrigue, quite frankly, is, and I don't just say this because of his name, is the lineman that they took late. I think anytime that you get a guy that just has characteristics that were so unique, just a huge body that is learning the position, like a high risk, high reward, not let me say low risk, high reward type guy that's of intrigue, and Jake Witt kind of feels that way, if you will. We talked about Brents and Downs. We talked about, and we'll talk about the players from Northwestern. How about Daniel Scott out of California? That to me felt like, stretch is probably the wrong word, but a guy that they're just going, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin, the narrative on Daniel Scott is like, kind of like when they took TJ Green out of Clemson, like, let's just see what he can do.
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference there between him and TJ Green is, and there's no way to say this outside of disparaging TJ Green, would be maturity. Daniel Scott, if he were in the NBA draft, he probably doesn't even hear his name called. And I say that because he will turn 25 years old in October. That is an incredibly old prospect in the draft. He began his college career at Cal in 2017. Obviously, the extra COVID year. You do have some older prospects in this draft class. Hendon Hooker, we talked about. Even Will Levis is a little bit on the older side. But Daniel Scott, when they took him in the 5th round, pretty much my initial thought was, oh, wow, this just screams special teams. Like, everything about him is a special teamer. New special teams coach Brian Mason. I just assumed that that's kind of where he would fit into this group. Now, Chris Ballard, after the draft, was a little bit more like, no, we think he's got a defensive chance, which, again, makes sense because you wouldn't take just a pure special teamer in round 5. To me, that's a little early for him. And, if you look at safety, they got a couple young guys. Rodney Thomas II had a great rookie season, especially for a 7th-round pick. We'll see about Nick Cross. It was pretty much a redshirt year. He started the season, then got benched, and never really got on the field.
Nick Cross kind of feels to me like Daniel Scott. Am I off base there?
But, again, I would slot Cross and TJ Green, Jake, more into like the uber young, we're going to try and tap into the traits, whereas Daniel Scott is 24 years old and a little bit more of a, I don't know, finished product sounds too harsh, but you kind of know what you're getting with him. Whereas Cross and Green, you're trying to project a little bit more. But that safety room, again, Julian Blackmon's in a contract year. Rodney Thomas II is back. I assume those two start. Rodney McLeod, he is not on the roster. He was a free agent. We'll see if he retires. And then Nick Cross, I guess, would be that 3rd safety on paper. Maybe Daniel Scott would be the 4th. So, a Cal defender there. Again, we'll turn 25 coming up in October, and probably, I don't know, out of all the draft picks, I just feel like he's the one that we probably won't talk about very much.
How about Titus Leo?
Yeah, not a lot of Wagner football players, right?
Right.
4th ever in the history of their program. The Colts actually already have one on their roster, Chris Williams, a backup defensive tackle. Titus Leo is reminiscent of when they drafted E.J. Speed back in 2019. E.J. Speed was out of Tarleton State. E.J. Speed had played like 4 different positions in college, finally had settled on linebacker. Titus Leo plays multiple positions at Wagner, finally has settled in as a pass rusher. So I think similar to Jake Witt with the last pick that they used in the 7th round, this is a dart at the board of a premium position, and they will see what they can get. Something that I think this team has lacked probably ever since really Robert Mathis led the league in sacks in 2013. And I guess Yannick Ngakoue, he honestly might have been the closest thing to it last year. The Colts just lack a pure speed edge rusher. Like the Colts' effective
They've been
pass
trying
rushers.
to find that, Kevin, forever, right?
Yeah, and the Colts,
since Freeney and Mathis, they've been trying to find that.
Yeah, and their best rushers are just kind of more power guys.
Right.
Not necessarily speed guys. And so I think that is the attempt here. And if you're going to take this approach, which I'm not saying that I highly endorse 12 draft picks, I'm probably more of a, it's a little, you need more high-end quality than just quantity. But, I get why Ballard does it. He says the draft's a crapshoot. Let's just try and get as many chances as we can get at the board. If you're going to have 12 draft picks, these are the types of picks that you should be making late. Throw a dart at a board at a position that matters. See if this guy from a small school has traits that you like, and could they possibly turn into something of a diamond in the rough.
Right.
You brought up the name Denzel Good yesterday with Jake Witt. That's kind of the thinking here. Obviously, when you think about day 3 picks in this franchise, Robert Mathis certainly stands out. That's what your effort is here of why not? See if you can get something, particularly for a skill set this team has lacked in a speed rusher.
Kev, Robert Mathis started out, and I think it's easy to forget this because of how things went. But Robert Mathis started out as a special teams guy, right? And then, you saw what became of his career. Are some of these players that are drafted, and this is an important area. I don't mean this as a snub at all. Do you get to a certain point in the draft where you're drafting guys not necessarily because you like the position that they played and dominated in college, but because they look like guys that can be special teams players that then develop into positional players for you?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the hope with some of these day 3 picks. When I look at Jake Witt and Titus Leo, for example, can Jake Witt, Northern Michigan, Titus Leo from Wagner, both of their first years to me just scream put them on the practice squad and worry about them in 2024. And we brought this up yesterday. I think we've been trained to get locked into this, what is the 53-man roster? What does that look like? The NFL, really ever since COVID, and has continued to do it since, has adopted a bigger practice squad, a easier to kind of bring guys up off the practice squad for a game and then put them back on the practice squad, and you don't risk them to waivers or free agency or anything like that. So I think teams are a little bit more willing to take these picks knowing they've kind of got a AAA system in their own building, and that's the practice squad. So the NFL, again, has adopted this really about 3 or 4 years ago. They continue to do it, and Chris Ballard has been a huge user of it. I guarantee you, if you look at last year's week 1 Colts practice squad, I'd say 70 to 80% of them ended up playing in a game last season, and or they just used last year as a nice time to, you get 17 weeks of practice, you get to learn, and in Witt's case, in Leo's case, they both would fall into they just need development more than anything.
I've always been curious if you were to ask Chris Ballard or insert name of really any executive, and maybe it's different, Kevin, from franchise to franchise, but is there a point in the draft where you say, look, we could sit here and act like we know the traits and the personalities and the X's and O's of every single player in the draft, but after pick 175, we are literally going with the guy that's just best athlete available?
I think you're almost seeing that in Leo and Witt. And this is something I talked about.
Correct, especially in Witt, right?
And again, do that at positions that matter, Jake. Do that at positions that mean more. So much of the headline after the Colts draft was, oh my gosh, this is one of the most athletic drafting classes we've ever seen. And there's a lot of truth to that. But to me, that's not the big storyline from this Colts draft. The big storyline from this Colts draft, and obviously Anthony Richardson is the torchbearer for it, is that finally you have seen a commitment from Chris Ballard in a draft on positions that matter more than others. Look at the first 4 picks. Quarterback, corner, wideout, offensive tackle. You throw in a corner there, I think 2 picks later. It is about time that this franchise strayed away from taking a guard in the top 10, taking a linebacker in the top 40, taking a running back in the second round. That has gotten you to the point of not winning a division title, to not being anywhere near close to the best team in the AFC South over the last 6 years. You've got to alter your approach, and I think if you are a Colts fan looking at this draft, I think that's what you should like the most about it. Again, it's a chance at quarterback, which speaks for itself, and we've talked that ad nauseum here over the past few months. But to me, it extends deeper than quarterback. You are finally making a serious commitment to the positions that matter.
What is your biggest race day tradition?
I go
or
with...
build up, not even race day tradition, but month of May tradition, other than drinking a Coors Banquet.
Sure, well, not just one. Coming up on Carb Day. So I made a couple of different Calcuttas for the 500. I enjoy that, getting together with some friends and family and taking part in a little snake draft.
Okay.
That's always...
Now, when you say snake draft, are people literally picking, or are you picking out of a hat?
So the order for round 3 is out of a hat, but I guess you do pick your order for round 1 and 2. So, for example, if you pick, the third selection, then you would have the third selection in round 1, and then as we snake back to round 2, you would have the 19th, 20th?
Right.
I'm trying to do the math on that. Rosie and I started last year, Jake. We came out to quals, and I would like to get her out to the track again, like 1, if not 2 days a year. If the Grand Prix is good weather, I think we might mound it up next
Yeah,
Saturday.
I think the Grand Prix is a really good chance for kids.
And where should I go mound-wise? Should I go the turn 1, which would be turn 4 of the oval? That's probably the most action. Or should I go over by where you are, kind of the other end of the road course?
That's a really good question.
Should we take this off air so it's not too crowded for me?
What's that?
Should we take this off air so it's not too crowded?
That's right. I think the viewing mounds near the museum for kids would be the most fun, because there's the most, you have the flags on top of the museum or near the museum going. You have the museum itself. You have the mounds are really good to roll down, quite frankly. I see kids doing a lot of that.
Perfect.
But you see the cars on the oval.
Or me after a few
I mean, they're
banquets.
going, they're going the wrong direction on the oval, but they do get to see what they look like on the oval, while as well seeing them kind of navigate turns. So just from like an atmosphere of the senses, I would say turn 2 would be better.
I guess what I love about it is just this is our thing. This is Indianapolis's, the state of Indiana's thing, and you just kind of grow up with it. I have vivid memories of kindergarten Kevin Bowen drawing Jacques Villeneuve.
Right.
And then Buddy Lazier in back-to-back years,
car.
and thinking I knew everything in the world about sports.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
And that is one of my biggest memories from childhood. I love driving around town and seeing the flags outside of everybody's house. I think today, actually, I'm going to go over and get my credential over there at 16th and Georgetown. So I eat it up. And I cannot sleep whatsoever on Saturday, whatever it is, May 26th. I can't sleep at all. I wake up, and I am so happy. Maddie looks at me that morning and goes, "You're literally smiling more than you did on our wedding day."
It's, I think the thing that, Kevin, makes it so special to me, and I understand and I totally respect that this has changed a little bit, but for a lot of people, Indianapolis was a city. We remember it before the Colts were in town and before the Pacers were a player. Now I know the Pacers as an ABA franchise were the best there was, but in terms of the national scale, the ABA was not the talking point that the NBA was, and the Pacers were not an NBA talking point until the early to mid '90s. And so, if you grew up of my age range in the 70s or 80s, and you were a kid from Indianapolis, and you went on spring break or you went on vacation to Florida or wherever and said you were from Indianapolis, people said to you, "Oh, the Indy 500." And it's what we were known for. And as a civic pride, you took pride in the fact that we were not only known for that, but we were known for something that no one else was. There were a lot of cities that were known for the NFL. There were a lot of cities that were known for the NBA or Major League Baseball or college basketball. But no one really could claim, and certainly no one else could claim, the largest single-day spectator sport in the world. I mean, it was just such a badge of honor. And then with that comes the traditions that, I've got a thing right now, and you can go on my Twitter, at Jake Query, JakeQuery, where I ask people for names of loved ones that they've lost in the last year that had a love for the 500.
I love that you do that.
And we do that each year in the pre-race. I list off, I wish I could read everyone's name. I apologize that I cannot. But it's touching to see the number of people that send a thing like, "Oh, my Uncle Ed took me out there. He was the first one to introduce me to it and cut out names out of the paper or show me the speed charts or just simply show me how to pack my cooler to get not one but 2 ham sandwiches in there. All the little traditions that go into it are just what make it so special, and I'm just so glad that today it looks more like May than yesterday because it was hard to get into it yesterday.
And you know what? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will hopefully feel like what it's going to be closer to race day. One confession I do have to make about the month of May, and I cheated a little bit. I started this kind of in late April. So basically the nightly routine in the Bowen household is, we have Rosie that I guess is almost 3, and Max is about 9 months. So basically, I'll take one kid to put to bed. Maddie will take the other one, and we usually
alternate.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. I really prefer to put Max down during this time because, once Max falls asleep in my arms, what I like to do is just kind of stay in his nursery for about 10 more minutes. And what do I dial up? I dial up the final 10 laps of past 500s.
Really?
Pop in the headphone.
That's pretty cool.
And watch that. And you know what? I don't know if this is legal, Jake, but we've got a few YouTubers out there that have done a great job of syncing your guys' radio call to the video of it. That seems to be a new addition on YouTube. So I have been a big fan of that. Gosh, you had one call. I've done the last 3 races, so I'm back to 01 or 2000. I was going to text you. You had a really good one the other night. I was trying to think of it. But I did watch. I guess I'm back to 2000.
Are they when you're listening to the radio and you're looking at the video, does it sync at all, or do you think to yourself, this guy's making this up?
Well, no, it actually syncs. It actually syncs pretty well. I was thinking back to the COVID race, though. The COVID race was so weird.
Tell me about it.
And watching that. But gosh, you had a good call. Maybe was it Pagano and Rossi going back and forth? That might have been one of them. But yeah, that is kind of now a nightly routine. So, when I get the Max nights, that means, all right, let's dial up YouTube and see what we can find here.
Each year during the race broadcast, because I've listened to plenty of old races. And when I say old, I mean like the 50s and 60s. And I love the theater of the mind of it. And I don't really, I'm not naive to think that 60 years from now people will be listening to the 2023 Indy 500. I don't know that, but I do try to. I will say this, Kevin, the only thing that I conscientiously do in calling the race, the only thing that I think ahead of time, the only 2 things. Number 1 is the names, and then the other one is at some point I try to describe the weather. Because I always envision
sunsplashed is a good phrase you use.
Yeah, or cloud cover or the whatever. But I'm trying to picture the guy 60 years from now that's listening to that race, putting his kid to bed, and wondering to himself, I wonder what that day was like. And so that I try to throw that in there at least once per race.
You do, as your entire team does a beautiful job in painting.
Well, they did better than I. But.
That picture. Pat Fitzgerald coming up at 9 o'clock. 2 Colts draft picks on that end. Will Hewlett, the quarterback's coach for Anthony Richardson, at 8:30. Any draft thoughts? We'll take some calls coming up here. 317-239-1070 as well. Kevin and Query, again, a really nice but chilly start to this Tuesday here in May.
95 and 107.5. The Fan.
Pat Fitzgerald going to join us here coming up at 9 o'clock. And Will Hewlett, the quarterback's coach for Anthony Richardson, coming up at the bottom of the hour. I think a question with Richardson isn't necessarily in the S2 test quarterback mind of his. It's more, again, to do with just the accuracy, the completion percentage. In particular, balls kind of thrown in that 0 to 10 yard range down the field, little to no worry at all about him. So again, I think that is something that Shane Steichen clearly believes he can continue to try and grow and develop with Richardson. And you are curious, is the other stuff kind of a non-starter? Was that a big issue for a guy like Will Levis? A thing that Chris Ballard really harped on going back to Thursday night when they drafted Richardson is, when you watch him play quarterback, you do see poise. You do feel poise. When things get chaotic around him, he does look like a guy that is not just ducking his eyes or immediately looking to run at every cost.
Right.
If I was blessed with that athletic talent, I'd probably be using my legs a whole lot.
He has pocket maneuverability, right?
Yeah, and so that is something that I think the Colts obviously feel good about. So, what he does on a whiteboard, how he handles the offense, and Shane Steichen can obviously, start pretty simple and then continue to build as he feels like, Anthony is a little bit more comfortable with whatever system that you throw at him. So that's another reason, Jake, why I'm good with playing him early is you can dial back the offensive system and not overload. But I just think the game reps of getting used to becoming a more accurate quarterback, that's stuff you can't replicate in practice whatsoever. Or at least to the degree that it is in a game setting. And that's why I think it is just so paramount to get him in the lineup as early as possible.
Now, have you seen the video of Anthony Richardson with Steve Mariucci?
I did, yeah. Mariucci showing or telling him a play, and then Richardson's supposed to write that up.
I don't know. You never know how much of this could be set up. And I think I've said before, one of the real epiphanies for me in the line of work that we do and in the access that we're fortunate to have is growing up, and I get it. I understand why athletes and coaches look at media guys and look, man, you've never played the game. And it's easy for a lot of us to say, yeah, but you don't have to play football to know that you have to score more points than the other team and avoid sacks and whatever else. I remember there was a member of the St. Louis Rams that kind of had the reputation of just being aloof, not invested, not putting a lot of time in. And I remember interviewing that player once after a game and asking, it looked like they were dogging a play. And they're like, well, I mean, what you didn't see is that was actually a double protection because there was a safety cheating over the top. And then when they went over that way, I had to slide into a split zone read. And I'm like, how in the world do you remember all this stuff? How do you recognize that immediately and alter to it? I think that we totally 100% underestimate the quick think, vision, and just acumen for the game that I'm not going to say is necessary, but is beneficial in professional sports. And I think a lot of quarterbacks have it. But Anthony Richardson did a video with Steve Mariucci where Mariucci was showing him a West Coast offense play that the Niners used to run with T.O. and Jerry Rice and Steve Young. And he's showing it, and he's like, now see what we're doing right here. And he's showing him all three options. Option one is to go here to Rice, obviously, and to stack the line at this point. Option two then would be to do this. Option three would be to do this. We call this play 74 double box stock left, whatever. Then at the end of the interview, Mariucci goes, by the way, and hands him the pen and says, show me that play again. And Richardson flawlessly to a T diagrammed it perfectly and had the name and all of the jargon for it instantly. Now, was that set up ahead of time? I don't know. It's entirely possible. I think all of us have a skill set, Kevin, that just it's almost hard to teach because you just naturally know it, and it's hard to tell others how to do something that you do organically. And with Richardson, in that case, learning and understanding and envisioning a play appeared to be a very natural thing for him.
Something we talked about a lot with Will Levis, too, that we probably should have paid a little bit more attention to with Richardson. And again, he only started for 1 year, so this is probably why we didn't really focus on as much. Levis had so much turnover around him from his first year starting at Kentucky to his second year. You know, Richardson was originally recruited by Dan Mullen, who has a lot of great history with quarterbacks. But then Billy Napier took over, and, you know, Rob Sale was Florida's offensive coordinator this past season, and he came from the New York Giants as their O-line coach. So you're not even getting necessarily a, you know, kind of heavy quarterback background there. Sure, you're getting a little bit of an NFL system type, which I think you do like that. But, you know, from what Richardson would have been used to when he was backing up Emory Jones the year prior at Florida, or even during his first year on campus, that wasn't the same. And, you know, so much of this, Jake, goes back to the hiring of Shane Steichen. And the biggest reason why you do that, the biggest reason why you make an offensive hire is because you are going to provide stability for your young quarterback. No matter who you selected, you are going to provide stability for that guy for the next X amount of years. For however long that quarterback is in Indy, you know, Shane Steichen is going to be the head coach, and by all accounts is going to be the play caller as well. And I don't get the vibe that Shane Steichen has any hesitations, any reservations about dumping play calling duties on somebody else. Maybe he'll hit that at some point once stuff gets real, but right now there is no way he's thinking about that. And it got me thinking, had the Colts hired Raheem Morris, had the Colts hired Wink Martindale, I don't know if they select Anthony Richardson. I don't know if Chris Ballard would have felt comfortable enough
to possible.
Select Anthony Richardson. And throughout the process, you heard me say many times, Shane Steichen should be the biggest decision maker in this process. He's the one that's working. First off, he has the best background with quarterbacks of any of the big three, Ballard, Irsay, and Steichen. And then obviously he's going to work most closely with that quarterback now moving forward. And I do think that is the case. Steichen had a ton of say. But the fact that you are betting on Richardson and your head coach, your play caller, and a guy that's going to work very closely with the quarterbacks has that background, I think all is why the Colts feel better about this, that their offensive staff will provide an atmosphere and environment that will give Anthony Richardson a chance. The other name I think that's worth mentioning, Richardson's quarterbacks coach, will be Cam Turner here in Indianapolis. Cam Turner's background, he was with the Carolina Panthers when Cam Newton was drafted, transitioned to quarterbacks coach there, and then he has most recently been out in Arizona with Kyler Murray. So when you think about working with dual threat type quarterbacks,
or guys that get out of the pocket and try to create,
and working with them at young moments in their NFL career, he checks that box. For those curious, Cam Turner is the son of Ron Turner, the nephew of Norv Turner, and we had Norv on right after the Shane Steichen hire, of course, probably the biggest mentor to Shane Steichen.
Do you get the feeling that Arizona is, I'm not going to say questioning, but starting to feel like they're checking the expiration date on Kyler Murray?
Yeah, but I just think financially, I don't know if they can move him. I mean, if they have a bad season, and again, Kyler's coming off the ACL.
He is a dynamic player, there's no doubt.
Couldn't that just scream Caleb Williams?
Yeah.
I think that could scream Caleb Williams. But financially, they just have a huge commitment to him.
But Caleb Williams, though, doesn't it feel kind of like Kyler Murray? Same type of player, I mean, like, in other words, you're going from one guy's skill set to just like the same, replicating the same. And wouldn't you want to go in a completely different style?
I think so much of the Kyler issue is off the field.
Well, what's the video game, Mark, he's addicted to?
Call of Duty.
Wow, you wasted no time in that.
Which, to be fair, there are many humans that would probably qualify in that group.
I mean, there are worse things, I guess, to have an addiction to.
Yeah, and it's not just that. I don't know. It's kind of unfair of me to say probably, but it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Mitchell, want to talk tight ends? Is that right, Mark?
Uh-huh.
Mitchell, what's up, man?
Hey, good morning, fellas. How you guys doing?
We're doing good. How are you?
Good. So I was talking, going to piggyback off of you. I trust Steichen with the offense completely, but with this tight end room being so full now, and then I forgot the guy's name from Cleveland that we signed, the blocking tight end. But like, I mean, how do you split? I think Jelani Woods is clearly the number one, but you got to find a way to like kind of work Mallory in and maybe Ogletree now because you don't really know what's there because of the injury. So like, I don't know what Ballard and Steichen do with that tight end room that's so full now. So I just want to get your thoughts on that. And hey, Jake, by the way, sounds kind of British in the studio this morning.
Sounds kind of British. What's that?
In the studio this morning?
Mitch, Mark, can we just...
Well, thank you, Mitch. I agree about that.
Oh, no. No, they need to pull Mitchell over. Wherever Mitchell's at. Can we get a cop car behind Mitchell?
I feel like Jake was like, can someone text in and do British
Literally.
accent?
Do you know Mitchell? Is that Mitchell Query the second?
He's a fine lad, yes. I don't know Mitchell. No.
I think tight end is one of maybe the most interesting position group the Colts will cut down. I think it's 6 guys for 4 spots. He brought up the blocker from Cleveland. That would be Pharaoh Brown, who they signed in the offseason. So right now, those 6 guys to me look like this. Mo Alley-Cox, Jelani Woods, Drew Ogletree, Kylan Granson, Pharaoh Brown, and then the draft pick they just had, Will Mallory. Those 6 guys for 4 spots. A lot of people, Jake, want to see, I think, Mo Alley-Cox cut or traded. I would argue...
He was a fan favorite a couple years ago, including by myself. I liked him. I mean, I was intrigued by him.
My first argument would be, what are you getting for him?
Well, the problem with him also, Kevin, is nothing against him, but if it was going to take off, it would happen by now, right?
Right, and I think we probably just need to temper expectations better. He's not going to be Antonio Gates. He's not going to be Tony Gonzalez.
Right.
Not every basketball player turned tight end into that.
He's not going to be Marcus Pollard.
No, but can he be a blocker for you? Because that to me is kind of the missing ingredient with this group is more of the blocking type. Jelani Woods, I think, can have a breakout season this year.
Where did Pharaoh Brown play collegiately?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Doesn't he sound like he sounds like one of my Ascot guys, doesn't he, Mark?
I guess South Carolina.
Pharaoh Brown, yes. I remember when he first entered at Pembroke. Pharaoh Brown was a wonderful lad.
I will say Pharaoh Brown does not really look like that sort of individual there.
Pharaoh was a nice young boy. His father was part of our cricket program.
Oregon. Quack, quack.
Okay.
But yeah, big dude, 6'6", 260. So again, I think he maybe fits more of the blocking element. What was interesting about the Will Mallory pick, Will Mallory.
His family had a home in Astoria.
Out of Miami, the grandson of Bill Mallory, the nephew of Kurt Mallory, who's currently the head coach of Indiana State. His father, Will, was or I think is still a special teams coach around the NFL. He, to me, is more in the Kylan Granson mold of a tight end. So when I saw that draft pick, as much as people brought up Mo Alley-Cox, I kind of thought, oh boy, what does this mean for Kylan Granson? A guy that I think has had a flash or two, but he's also had some drops and some critical moments.
It doesn't seem like, or it feels like, I should say, that Kylan Granson, a lot of his drops were like in camp, kind of in other words, he never really established his footing when it mattered most, when the lights were not on, to be able to say, here's what I can do. And I think he showed some flashes, but the consistency just wasn't there, right?
Yeah, and I do think Shane Steichen was a big fan of the drafting of Mallory, so that obviously will help him. Again, Drew Ogletree had a great training camp last year. So you're not cutting Woods. I don't think you would cut Mo Alley-Cox because, again, he's probably the most established in the inline blocker. You would save about $5 million if you cut him, so maybe you would look into that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Granson, do you cut him? And he still's got a couple years left on the rookie deal. That will be a group that I don't necessarily think it's one of the best groups in the NFL by any means, but it's a group that they're going to cut a guy, and it's going to be like, oh, wow. At one point, we thought he would be something for this team.
You know, I'm actually a little surprised. I'm not going to say I'm offended. Because I'm very secure in myself. But I'm a little surprised that you guys haven't given me more props on my Ascot guy accent. That's right up there with my British accent, where when I go out in public and stuff, people go crazy over it, and kids in particular love it. I mean, they'll call their kids over and have me talk in the grocery store and things like that in those accents, and people love it. They go crazy for it. And then you guys just sit here stoically staring at each other as if I'm Medusa. Like, what's going on there?
You want more credit? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I do, actually.
Oh.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Right. I feel
In
like
my opinion, that sucked.
Well,
I feel like lately you've been on even more of an ego kick.
Yeah.
Am I wrong on that, Mark?
It's because he's about to graduate, so he's getting a little...
Yeah, I was curious where
senioritis is coming in.
He's got a cat and he's graduating, and all of a sudden...
in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to become both a graduate and a parent. So I'm just entering all kinds of arenas with you guys. Right?
You really are. I mean, this is quite the
I can always
here.
ego check him if you'd like, Kev. Would you like me to ego check him real quick?
Oh.
If you've got problems with your nips, not your nips, that's for sure.
That one always gets him.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Was that an ad read?
That was an ad read, yeah.
What was it for?
Nips, apparently.
If you've got problems with your nips. Thanks. Yep, great. Not your nips,
Yep.
that's for sure. See how quickly I caught that?
That one always...
See how quickly I corrected?
That one always gets you.
The hand-eye coordination there to immediately correct is impressive. That's the kind of thing. That's what people want, I think, out of this program is not only... And also just being humble to say, I made a mistake.
Mark, I must say I've encountered my first issue here at age 33 that I didn't know I would. I keep on looking down at my fingernails. Last night, Rosie wanted to paint my fingernails, and oh my gosh, getting this stuff off
is a pain.
That's an understatement.
Yeah,
I tried the rubbing alcohol. Didn't really work.
Might need to get some
completely.
paint thinner.
So here I am just slowly trying to chip away at all these little sparkles on my fingers, and now they're getting on my laptop.
See, we get like the kids kind, which is like kind of.
I looked at Maddie and I was like, "Did we not get that kind?"
Yeah.
I mean, this is brutal.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I've rubber cement.
Do you ever get manicures?
I've never gotten a manicure. No.
Mark?
No.
Oh.
No mani, no pedis over here.
No, you guys aren't living.
Oh, Jake, you need to come over and then have Rosie paint your nails.
Sure. I love getting manicures. Love it.
I mean, do they rub your feet and stuff when you go there?
Oh, let me tell you, buddy.
That's pedicure.
That.
We're
My
in
dogs are
Birmingham.
barking.
Alex Wolf, who does a radio network with us, we're in Birmingham. We went to dinner on Friday night. We're walking back to the hotel. The restaurant was right next to the hotel. Right next to, in between the two, there was a small strip mall, and I see a sign, one of the like foot and leg massage places. I go, Alex, you ever done this? No. I said, well, your life's about to change. We went in and
there's Robert Kraft. There's Rex Ryan. Hey guys, how are you?
we went in and sat there, just a couple of good buddies sitting side by side, doing the whole pedicure deal. Loved every minute of it.
I think I'm too ticklish.
No,
Have you used nail polish remover?
Yeah, I tried that last
coming
night.
Off?
No, I finally quit. I thought the smell was too much.
Maybe you're using Sherwin-Williams or something. Maybe that's why it's not coming off. You're using actual paint.
Maddie said if I just waited a few days, it would eventually fall off. So that's where I'm at here on this Monday or on this Tuesday morning.
Now, meanwhile, you have glitter on your fingernails? Mm-hmm. I've got dry cuticles that then, because I'm on blood thinners, turn into clots. That's fun. Because it takes forever, and then once it clots, you can't pick it away because then it's like Niagara Falls again.
See, that's how I thought he was going to get out of the coffee and mayo thing. He's I'm bleeding, I got to leave. Yeah. Poke himself with a little...
Not a lot of Band-Aids in this office, though, so good luck.
That is true. I went looking the other day, and I'm like, wait, what happened?
Trying to control that. In 10 minutes, we're going to have Will Hewlett, again, Anthony Richardson's quarterback's coach. He is going to join us, and Pat Fitzgerald coming up at 9 o'clock. Let's begin the morning checkdown with Quite the Night by James Harden.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Last night in Game 1 between the Sixers and the Celtics, James Harden in his walk-in was dressed like a child. Then he went out and played like a man. As a matter of fact, without Joel Embiid, when the game was on the line, it was Harden that delivered for the city of brotherly love.
Difference of 2 seconds, game clock and shot clock. Harden sizing up Horford. It's a three. Good! Harden's got 45! Timeout, Boston!
Philly wins at 119-115. Harden, in fact, 45 points. Tyrese Maxey, who's a really good player, had 26. Tobias Harris, 18 for the Sixers. The Celtics did get 39 points and 11 boards from Jason Tatum and 23 from Jaylen Brown. You got to think if you're Boston, Kevin, a little discouraging to get a combined, 62 points out of those two players and still not be enough in a game when the best player probably on both teams in Joel Embiid, well, I don't know if I'd say the best, one of the 4 best, is not on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, you're 10.5-point favorite at home. You were the one, resting. I guess not a ton of rest, but it's not like you played just a couple nights ago. Yeah, that is one that now you're climbing uphill a little bit here. And for now, Philly has home court, and we'll play with house money coming up on Wednesday night for Game 2. Tonight, you're going to have the Heat and the Knicks. That's Madison Square Garden, Game 2. The Knicks down 1-0. We'll see about Jimmy Butler's ankle. Is that an issue at all? Twisted that late in their Game 1 win on Sunday. And then the second game of the night will be the Lakers and the Warriors. That is a 6 seed in the Warriors, a 7 seed in the Lakers. Who the hell guards Steph Curry? I was thinking about that. Is it D'Angelo Russell?
It's a good question, probably.
I don't see that ending well.
I mean, can anybody guard him when he's hot and when he's going? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Put Jared Vanderbilt on him. That'll be something to watch.
Major League Baseball yesterday. Cubs over the Nationals 5-1. It was the Padres over the Reds 8-3.
Well, where are you going to go?
Every time, Mark, really?
Every time. Every time they lose.
I think he plays that more or the plot more.
Oh, well, if you want the plop, I can play you the plop.
This is the sound of the Reds yesterday squaring into the batter's box against the Padres.
Are you going to abandon being a Reds fan? Are you going to abandon following this team?
It was on the road yesterday, right?
It was. Mm-hmm. Dodgers over the Phillies 13-4. Cleveland over the Yankees 3-2. Boston over the Blue Jays 6-5. And the Astros over the San Francisco Giants 7-3.
Coming up later this week, the Colts will have their rookie mini camp. That will be practices on Friday and Saturday over at the complex. It'll be the first time for Anthony Richardson and obviously the rest of his rookie class to get on the field. So we should get an official list from an undrafted free agent standpoint coming up later this week. They'll have some tryout guys. Typically that includes some local names on that list. From an undrafted free agent standpoint, I know a lot of people saw the name Emil Ekiyor, a Cathedral product who played at Alabama, 3-year starter at right guard there. That is a position that the
doesn't
Colts,
that feel like that would be a natural transition to the NFL if you're a 3-year starting guard at Alabama?
You would think. I think a lot of people thought he would be drafted, but did not get drafted. But he walks into a situation that, again, I think the Colts could use some help there. So I think he's an undrafted free agent that could, not only make the team, but potentially push Will Fries for some playing time. Last year, the Colts started up their streak of undrafted free agents again. They had, I think it was, I want to say it was like 22 or 23 straight years. Then that streak ended, but last year it started back up with Dallas Flowers, JoJo Doman, and Wesley French.
I'm not saying that that my mind is weird, but when I keep hearing you say the rookie minicamp, for some reason I juxtapose it in my mind and I hear you saying mini rookie camp, and I just think of all these like little guys out there as rookies.
Well, there will be some smaller players. Are you saying Josh Downs?
Like little tiny guys, like running around. You know what I mean?
Well, the brain is weird part. I don't think anybody would debate.
Like that Vern Troyer, for example, if he was trying out.
RIP.
You know what I mean?
Could be a Darren Sproles type.
I don't know if Vern Troyer would have been, but yes. But they'd love to find a Darren Sproles type. I think we know that, right? Honestly, hasn't Shane Steichen basically said, like...
Well, we'll see about Evan Hull, who we have with Pat Fitzgerald
coming
up here in a bit, the Northwestern running back. Not necessarily in that mold, but again, as a pass-catching back out of the backfield, that is something the Colts certainly need.
Little tents. They'd have like little tents at their camp.
And we'll get more on that. Have you practiced the pronunciation of the other Northwestern player yet?
I have, yep. Tommy.
Oh, you're just bailing out like that?
Yep, that's what he said.
Well, he says on first reference, he would appreciate the full name.
Understood.
And then Tommy after that.
So when we have him on, you will introduce him, and then I'll call him Tommy.
Adetomiwa Adebawore.
That's not bad. Adetomiwa Adebawore.
Pat Fitzgerald will certainly have it.
Adetomiwa Adebawore. That's not bad.
I think you got it. But up next, Anthony Richardson, quarterbacks coach Will Hewlett. He joins us on the other side.
5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, good Tuesday morning to you. Got a nice looking start to this day here in Indy. Temperature-wise, though, probably going to be a bit chilly and then warm up later in the week. Speaking of later in the week, he will be back in Indianapolis coming up Thursday night. First rookie minicamp. Practice for Anthony Richardson will be Friday, and to get more into Anthony Richardson and a big part of his development, Will Hewlett, Quarterbacks Collective. He's been working with Anthony for the past few months. He joins us now. Will, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, appreciate the time. You obviously have been pretty much the quarterback's coach for Anthony Richardson post Florida here. If we would have had this conversation last Tuesday, and I would have said to you, Anthony Richardson will be a Colt coming up, your level of surprise would have been what?
Not very high. I was very confident. Just if certain things fell into place in the first and second pick, that he was going to be a Colt for sure.
Will, in working with him, before we get to some of the areas that need work about Anthony Richardson, let me give you this platform and let you run with it. Yeah. If you were to close your eyes and envision a play in the National Football League where the game is on the line and you are watching Anthony Richardson under center for the Indianapolis Colts and he makes a play that has Joe Buck marveling on television, and you break out in a sly grin and say to yourself, that's exactly what I knew he could do and why he was selected fourth. That play unfolds how?
There's going to be some form of pressure because that's what we do with young quarterbacks. We pressure young quarterbacks. He is going to stay calm in the pocket, probably climb, make a little move, and then throw the ball, 65-plus yards down the field with ease. On the money over the shoulder for a touchdown. That's how it's going to unfold. And, he does that, and he does that very well.
So is the ability for Richardson to extend time in the pocket most based on, A, his unique ability to feel pressure around him and then know where to slide, B, his massive physical size that just makes it difficult for him to be brought down, or C, his arm talent that allows him to throw through angles that others would not?
D, all of the above. But I think if we're, his uniqueness in the pocket, his presence there, I think is something that's probably underrated or underappreciated maybe. I don't know, some people have talked about it, but often when you have a quarterback that is a threat from a running standpoint and has the ability to kind of break off explosive plays with their feet, and then maybe put into a category of like accuracy issues, that we overlook some of the other things that I think we would grade highly, regardless of style of play. And so pocket movement for me is always one of the things that you can see on film. His presence and awareness, he keeps his eyes downfield. He doesn't get flustered. Has been a very high, I think, recruitable trait for Anthony.
Yeah, poise was something Chris Ballard mentioned last Thursday night when the Colts took him as little to no worry for the Colts. Again, Will Hewlett is with us, quarterback's coach for Anthony Richardson over the past few months, 4 on-field sessions each week for them. Will, it seems the deep ball is really of no concern. It's more of the short stuff with Anthony Richardson. So just fundamentally, what have you been trying to get him to work on since his career ended at Florida?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a couple things from a technical standpoint, and I think it's important to say that we're, in this process, we're going to shy away from, were there missed throws that didn't go the way they, should have gone, that look somewhat simple. And the irony is, if you dig through everyone's film, you can find a bunch of those from other quarterbacks. But so there was this narrative we had to kind of clear up, and there's some fun things fundamentally we had to clear up from just a consistency standpoint. He is, obviously he's still young. He's, not 21 yet, and so there's just a volume of repetitions that he still needs to get in. I think he's we've accelerated that process considerably. But we wanted to clear up some of the mechanics on the front side of his throw, just be a little bit more controlled with his lower body, have more awareness. I think one of the problems that a lot of quarterbacks have And it's just the dynamic of football. It's hard to be a specialist in throwing mechanics as a team coach. So often things you think, well, why are the coaches coaching? They don't have time. And that's why I have a job, is because I have time in the off season to work through these things. So, sequencing and areas that kind of clear up his ability to repeat. And then if he does make a mistake, have kind of a mechanism to correct that mistake on the next rep. And that's just, a little thought process. So I think, years ago, there was a little picture of Tom Brady going into, camp, and he had written on his wristband, it was like, rotate late, stay close. It was like 3 little reminding cues, right? And so our job is to provide those types of cues, help him come up with those cues that allow him to, if he does miss, have a mechanism to kind of correct that pretty quickly.
Have you had any conversations with Shane Steichen about him fundamentally and what you have worked on and what the Colts will try and continue to work on?
Shane, I just had a brief interaction with while I was in Indianapolis in the Combine. We didn't kind of jump into the fundamental side. We have spoken, our team here with Tom Gormalian and Danny Thompson, have spoken, in detail, in depth with the Colts staff in terms of building a support system and understanding what we've done down here in very, very high detail. So there's a smooth transition. It's not, traditionally in football, the football world, the outside coaches do their thing and the team coaches do their thing. I think people are realizing that, the quarterback coach, the private quarterback coach and the quarterback have a relationship that's considerable and deep and that will usually last, and it's where they're going to spend their time in the off season. And so they've done a phenomenal job of even down to hey, the nutritionist you use, we want her information so we can fully understand how to support Anthony in this process going forward.
Will Hewlett is our guest. He's with Quarterback Collective. He is the quarterback coach for Anthony Richardson. Will, I've got a 2-part question here. The first is this. Give me an aspect of quarterbacking that maybe is like a natural instinct for a lot of quarterbacks that Anthony Richardson has yet to master.
Good. Okay. Yep. So I think probably the area that he has yet to master, but I think has made considerable progress on, and it was a major focus point going into the off season, was really understanding how to throw different speed, different levels of velocity on throws that are under 20 yards and below. And I think it was just it's fine tuning the mechanics of his throw and then his awareness. And ironically, it's not that he was throwing the ball too hard on shorter throws, which you would think for a big arm quarterback. Frequently, it wasn't that he was throwing it hard enough. And he was kind of stuck in a little bit of a gray area where he just, had been told, hey, don't throw the ball hard. And that's a hard way to coach it. That's a difficult term for a quarterback to kind of swallow. So how do I not throw it hard? And so usually they slow the throw down in ways that they probably shouldn't. So one of the things that we really spent time on was understanding, actually how hard you can throw on shorter and intermediate routes. And then especially when receivers were coming towards him. When he's able to throw them downfield or away from, more of an anticipatory throw, that never seemed to be an issue. It was ones where they were coming directly at him. And in his mind, he was trying to control and help them, not bounce the ball off their face mask. And we kind of changed his mindset and attitude. And he even spoke about it at the Combine, kind of like, hey, it's my job to throw it. And if I throw it hard, they've got to get used to it. Something along those lines. And so that was an area I think that he's gotten considerably better at and will continue to improve at, and you'll see that in his game.
Okay, so give me an area then. The other side of it for you, Will Hewlett, would be this. Give me an area that for most quarterbacks is a real challenge that you were surprised that it seemed to be completely natural to Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, 20 yards and above downfield on any outbreaking left or right or in-breaking throw, he was an absolute natural. One of the throws at the combine is the old dagger route, which is essentially an 18 to 20-yard dig in-breaking throw from the outside wide receiver. And the way that you're taught to throw this ball in the NFL, it's not a line drive, rip it as hard as you can. It is throw it 1 to 2 yards outside the hash. You throw it off a specific time, and the receiver has to intersect that point at that moment. And so it's a combination of a hard breaking route, his ability to place that ball, and I think it was evident in the combine. I actually had an NFL coach, but I was watching the combine in the stadium, turn and look at, he knew that I coached Anthony, turn and look at me, and literally with his jaw on the floor after he threw 3 dig routes, in-breaking routes. And they were the best in-breaking digs at the combine, in my opinion. I don't think it was televised, so I was a little upset that part of it was missed. But those were 3 of his, best throws, and he's just a natural at that. Where a lot of guys have to really struggle with placement, timing, and then again down the field, out-breaking routes. Just a really fantastic job of placing the ball in a position where that guy's going to be able to get it, and the defensive back isn't.
Does he utilize his mobility and size to facilitate his passing, or does he utilize his passing to facilitate his mobility?
That's a great question. I think depending on the situation, really, I know that one thing about Anthony is that if it's a down and distance situation and he's got to get the first down and he's going to get it with his mobility, or even his one unique trait that Anthony has is he has the ability to, we actually measure this, but sustain a high level of speed with additional weight attached to him. So he's like a diesel truck when he runs, and you'll see it on film. He'll carry people. And so when he's got to move the chains, then it's going to be, he's not afraid or worried about doing that with his lower body. Now, obviously, moving into the NFL, we want to be conscious of, not taking unnecessary contact, making sure we're developed as a passer first. But I think depending on the situation, he's going to rely on what he needs to. I think games in college sometimes, this past year, he was unsure of which side he should focus on, and I think that led to a little bit of the inconsistency early on in the year when he really just bought in and into what he was as a thrower, as a runner, as a passer, as an operator. His game play went through the roof, and he just got better and better every week.
Again, Will Hewlett is with us, the quarterback coach for Anthony Richardson here over the past few months. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Will, I'm sure this is probably a challenge for you at times, but how difficult is it to want to instill these changes, know that they need to have some fundamental changes for Anthony, but you don't want him to get to play too robotic? You've brought up the word natural a lot. I mean, there are a lot of natural instincts to him that obviously are very gifted. So where is that balance in trying to not get him to be too robotic, but obviously make some changes?
Yeah, I think that's I think, and maybe the plug here for what we do, that's the art form in this draft process, and that's why we had a lot of success with, last year we had Brock Purdy, and so understanding what to do and how much to do, there is a very fine line, right? Because you don't want them going into a competitive environment, overthinking what they're doing. Now, the irony is we are preparing for a dance recital, essentially, right? It's not real football, and I think that's important to identify. But it is important for coaches to pull back the curtains and kind of see what's under, behind the scenes there. And you want to see people throw in person and see how the ball comes off and see the intricacies or differences in quarterback to quarterback. So for us, it was really making a conscious effort. I have a very short amount of time to get to know someone in terms of how they react to coaching and how they, and how I understand, their little nuances of okay, that's when he's excited, that's when he's frustrated. So with Anthony, the good thing was it wasn't large mechanical changes. There was just a lot of it was having more awareness brought to certain areas. It was being in a very specific, focused routine that allowed him to have consistency and build on everything that he was doing. And so at certain points leading up to the combine, the Friday before the combine, we do our dry run through. And I literally tell him, I'm like, bud, I'm not going to coach you once today. You know, if you miss, we're moving on. And I remember that day, he didn't miss a single throw through our walkthrough. And he, at the end of it, was like, I'm going to blow this thing up, speaking about the combine. And so he knows. The one great thing about Anthony, too, that you'll see, you saw it at the pro days or at the combine, you'll see them big moments. He's a showman. Like, you turn the lights on, and that kid is going to step up to the plate, and just, he loves being in that pressure situation. He makes, as a coach, there's a nerve level that I deal with, you know, that being honest, right? And he makes you feel better about the environment you're in. So it's going to be fun to be his coach at the next level because, you know, it's going to be a good back and forth between those guys and you know, watching the preparation pay off on Sundays.
All right, well, last one from me, and thank you for the time this morning. Again, from the Quarterbacks Collective, he is Will Hewlett. Jim Irsay mentioned that at one point during the process, he called Shane Steichen and said, all right, Shane, tell me why you think, you know, Anthony Richardson can become a pure passer. When you look at the completion percentage number at Florida, it's obviously not a pretty number. If Jim Irsay were to call you and say, why is that number going to improve, your answer would be what?
You know, I think there's a couple levels to it. And again, you know, I think Florida is the University of Florida, they're going through transition with coaches, right? Their first year, new offense. There's, you know, a lack of traditional explosive guys at receiver. And I think, you know, comparatively speaking, you look at the rooms of the Ohio States and the Alabamas and the Georgias, you know, the LSUs of the world. There's some really, really talented dudes catching the ball, and it's not to take any away from the guys that are just young and inexperienced. And Anthony, you know, was the most explosive player on the field, and he wasn't throwing to himself. So I think there's, you know, a level, and everyone's going to have drop balls, everyone's going to have misses, everyone's going to have bonehead plays, right? And so you got to take that into account. But I think those levels were probably substantially higher. And, you know, he came out of the Mullen system. He was the first year in a new offensive system. Yeah, I think that wasn't really focused around, you know, pushing the ball downfield with easy pass sets, right? There are a lot of, like, you know, two tight end, one back, or two back, one tight end, you know, more power run formations. And they were learning about their staff was learning about their team just as much as Anthony was learning about the new offense. So there's you can easily point at the numbers and say, hey, this wasn't as good as this team. And Ohio State and Alabama, those guys have been running the same system for years now. It's plug and play. And so I think you'd find that the numbers would flip a little bit in different situations, but they weren't. So that's your job as a coach and a scout and an evaluator to really look at every single miss and every single decision and go, okay, like, what does Anthony think about this? What does the staff think about this? And what do we think about that? And I think if you do that objectively, you look at him every single snap the right way, then you can't not look at the film and go, dang, like we gotta draft this guy. I don't know how we don't. There's no wrong decision in picking Anthony Richardson as high as he went, and you know, I think they're confident in that, and so am I.
Will, lastly, and I probably should have asked this at the outset of the interview, so I apologize to give you this platform, but Will Hewlett is our guest, who was the quarterback coach for Anthony Richardson. If you could, how did your relationship in terms of coaching Anthony Richardson, what is the origin of that? And what other or how many other quarterbacks have you worked with that give you kind of the barometer by comparatively which to gauge Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. So for Anthony, I had one interaction with him prior to his final season at the University of Florida. A good friend of mine and training partner, his name is Danny Thompson, was Anthony's private coach during his high school years and at Florida. We also had I personally had a pretty strong relationship with some of the staff at the University of Florida. And so there was a natural familiarity, and I think Anthony knew that he liked the system based on the success that we'd had on the performance side with, our performance part. I think at Torque, it's a very reputable, the guys that run that, work with Matthew Stafford and Brock Purdy and Gardner Minshew. Gardner's a guy that's also works with our crew here. So through that process, it was one of those things where it just seemed like a natural fit for Ant to, take a little 90-minute hike up to the Jacksonville area and start his off-season training. And that's kind of how that relationship, grew and was really just a good fit that I felt like that, really benefited him short-term and long-term. And then from a comparative standpoint, I think the only other person that I've seen that blows my mind when I see them throw the football is Caleb Williams at University of Southern California. Worked with him since 8th grade. And that's a young man. Before I met Anthony, I said, I've never seen a better in-person thrower than that kid. Ant did some things daily that I'm like, I have never seen anyone do that before. So there's not many good comps out there. I think Josh Allen is an easy one to make, not because of the physical stature, the style of play. And that's probably a good one. But I think Ant really is his own player, and y'all are going to get to see that unfold this next fall.
Again, rookie minicamp coming up on Friday. That'll be Anthony Richardson's first time on the field here in Indy. Will, great stuff. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I probably should start there. Great stuff. Anthony seems like a really, really I think fans are going to appreciate him and how he's wired. Confidence, yet fully acknowledges the hard work is needed. That's a special quality. So we are excited to watch it all unfold and appreciate the time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
That's Will Hewlett, again, quarterbacks collective there. You mentioned Brock Purdy. Again, Gardner Minshew has worked out with Anthony Richardson before. I think with big guys, Jake, you naturally get this. I think you get it like in the NBA maybe with like foul shooting. The touch part of the game can be difficult. I think for Anthony Richardson, that's where he has to grow as a thrower. Can you paint the corners while also throwing the fastball 102?
Right, and that's kind of been the knock on Richardson so far, right? Is the short slant on 3rd and 8.
Yes, it's a lot of the underneath stuff, 0 to 10 yards, the ball placement within that. I thought that was pretty insightful there.
You know what it reminds me of? Do you remember a kid that played at Iowa named Chris Kingsbury? Kind of a Steph Curry.
Time ago.
I'll go with Steph Curry then, okay? Steph Curry's probably a bad example because he's pretty darn electric. But it feels like Steph Curry, you have a better chance of him hitting a 35-foot pull-up than you do him hitting a 12-footer off a curl. And that's Anthony Richardson, by what he's describing there, better odds at him hitting a 60-yard out than a 3rd and 8 slant. And you gotta
fix
work
that.
on it. Yeah.
You have to fix that.
Right.
Again, right now you'd probably say he's a 80% runner, 20% thrower.
Especially if you don't have the line to give you the time to get receivers down that far.
Yeah, longevity in this league that's got to change a bit. It's a great asset, is running, but can you get that a little bit closer to 50-50 to where his throwing can be reliable and can be a strength? All right, Pat Fitzgerald, Northwestern head coach, on the other side.
Inquiry on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Jake, in a way, I feel like I've looked in the mirror maybe 10 times since the Colts took one of these two Northwestern Wildcats on Saturday, and I've just said to myself, Adetomiwa Adebawore.
Now say it again.
Adetomiwa Adebawore.
Tommy, yep.
Yeah, Tommy, after that first reference. That's what he told us on Saturday. And maybe I've done that to maybe prepare myself for our next guest. That would be the head coach of the Northwestern Wildcats, Pat Fitzgerald. Coach, if you're going to grade me 1 to 10, how'd that sound?
Hey, that was excellent. Not bad for a first-timer. I would strongly recommend the Tommy. I think you'll be able to do a great job with that. But, man, oh, man, did the Colts get two great guys and unbelievable players, man. We're fired up.
Okay, now, Coach, I want you to grade me as well, and I'll do my best here. Give me an A to F score. Evan Hull.
Was that Hull or Hull?
Hull. Hull. Hull.
See, where are you from? Like Cleveland? I mean,
oh boy.
Right here in Indy, baby. You know what? And now here's the thing, Coach. Be careful because, like an hour ago, I was like, this Pat Fitzgerald seems like a cool dude. Like he'd be a cool guy to hang out with. And then here we are. We're off to this right now. Evan Hull. Did I say it wrong, or is it Hall?
Yeah, no. Listen, guys, love it, man. It's good stuff. Yeah, listen, you're gonna really like these two guys. I think number one, I got to tip my hat to Chris and his staff. I mean, unbelievable job that they have always done. I've known, Chris for a long time, and you want to talk about being thorough, doing it the right way in the evaluation process, and I think being really convicted with the decisions they make are best for the organization. So we're incredibly thankful to have two of our guys going to Indy, and I think the community more than anything is going to really enjoy the impact that both Tommy and Evan have, because they'll be more than just football players. They're terrific men. They're going to be great teammates, and they're going to be involved and engaged in the community.
By the way, does Cleveland have an accent? Chicago has an accent. Now, Indianapolis has kind of Indy's got a subtle twang. I'll admit that. Like, I go places and people are like, you from the South? I'm like, what, are you kidding me? I'm from Indianapolis. I'm thrown off here. Hey, Coach, let me ask you, it's probably interesting, and I'm curious your standpoint on this because, look, I do think you're a heck of a football coach, and I think Northwestern has shown that. I know last year probably in wins and losses it wasn't where you wanted to be, but I feel like players coming out of Northwestern are going to be pretty sound football players. So is it ever of surprise to you which players are drafted and which are not? In other words, do you feel that there really is much transition between the college game and the NFL game and what guys are expected to do?
Yeah, I think it's a huge transition. Number one, I lived it, right, as a player. And now let me not insult any guy that's played in the NFL. I mean, I did not have the athleticism to even belong in a camp back in the 90s. But, it's the 1% of the 1% of athletes that play our game. And it's just you have to be absolutely relentless in everything you do as far as being a player on Sunday. And some guys are just incredibly talented and they can get away with it for a while, but more times than not, it comes back to your attitude, what type of teammate you are, the relentless work ethic that you have. And then you got to be able to make plays and play within the framework of what you're being asked to do. And are there more guys that I wish got opportunities? Absolutely. But it's simple economics, man. It's supply and demand. There's a finite number of jobs in the NFL on the field, and there's so many guys that want the opportunity. So, when number 259 got picked, a young man from Toledo, hey, it's Mr. Irrelevant. I don't know. 259 guys got their name called. I think it's pretty freaking relevant, man. I mean, it's a big deal. So, it's great to see our guys. We had 4 get drafted this year, and 3 more that are getting camp invites. So. You're right. Our record wasn't what we want it to be for sure. But we're not as far away maybe as our record indicates, losing 5 one-score games and a couple games by 2 scores. We're not that far away, and excited to get back to India and play in the championship. We've been there 2 out of the last 5 years, and there's no doubt that's the driving force of every team in the Big Ten.
He is the second longest tenured coach in the Big Ten. Pat Fitzgerald with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Again, 2 draft picks for the Colts coming up on day 3 from his program. Let's get into those 2. Both of them captains. Tommy, set the combine on fire. If it wasn't for Anthony Richardson, it was probably Tommy, the guy that, drew the most headlines there. We're talking 84 pounds, and he ran a faster 40 than the draft picks the Colts made at corner and wide receiver just ahead of him. How do you see his best fit at the next level?
Yeah, I really think he's going to move inside and go, progress full-time to becoming a 3-technique defensive tackle. We were in the process of doing that. Tommy came in as a developmental guy, meaning just he was a little weight-wise undersized. And, man, you want to talk about just absolute stud in his work ethic in the weight room. And he had great traits and great talent coming in, but it was just his relentless work ethic that, really led him to that type of performance. Got better every year, and now that he's going to focus on one position, the sky's the limit for him. And so, some organizations want guys already at 330 pounds and, so on and so forth. I think the Colts are going to be able to, add, just a handful of more pounds as he progresses through his career. And, you're going to probably see a guy in a year, 295, 300 pounds that's running for something fast and hopefully having a party in the backfield in the AFC.
Okay, then Evan Hull, he's a guy that I feel like from a pass-catching standpoint, the Colts need to try and tap into that. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor speaks for itself, but kind of getting that third-down guy. Hull certainly caught the ball out of the backfield for you, but it almost seems like you're selling him short if you only label him as that. I mean, 2,000 rushing yards, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, complete back. He can do it all. He's number one, just like Tommy, but high-level football intelligence. We asked him to line up and motion and shift, and he had to do a lot from the standpoint of not only learning running back and where his reads were and his cuts, but then protections, and then being able to line up anywhere on the field, and then the entire route tree, and then coverage concepts. So. As far as that, I think you're going to check the box of a young man that is very hungry. Under-recruited. We offered him late. State champion 100 meters, wrestler in high school, and then humble to a point where I think you're going to see him be willing to do whatever the team asks him to do. If it's special teams, if it's third down, whatever is needed. That's what you're going to get from Evan. And again, like you said, 2 guys that were captains for us that, are just really special people beyond, their amazing traits on the field.
Coach, I want to go back to Pat Fitzgerald, the head coach at Northwestern, is our guest on the Payless Liquors Hotline. I want to go back to Adebawore. I hope I'm saying that correctly. In his background, he was born and raised in Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken, but his parents come to the United States from Nigeria in the 90s, which makes me feel really old, right? But I oftentimes feel like, and I want to make sure that I'm not romanticizing a story that doesn't exist, okay? But my thought process would be that this is a young man that, while he was born and raised in the U.S., he's seeing right underneath his own roof 2 people who understand the dedication and the work ethic and the sacrifice that goes towards being successful to be able to make a life for themselves in a new land. And that example carries itself for a young person, even when he has God-given athletic ability. Did you witness that?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that'll be a great conversation for you guys to have with Tommy and let him share his thoughts. There's no doubt family is the foundation, and his parents are terrific. We tried to get his next youngest brother. He decided to go to a school in Norman, Oklahoma. I don't know why he would have done that. I mean, he would have looked pretty darn good in purple too. But we'll see what happens in the portal world. But I'll probably get charged with tampering now. But, whatever. It's a special family. And again, like Evan, I mean, Tommy's the same way. I mean, you guys are going to love him. I mean, and the organization is going to love him. I mean, this is a guy that wanted during training camp when everybody else was going back to take a nap. He wanted to watch film with the coaches. I mean, he's really a special guy, and we moved him around a lot. And now that he's going to play just one position, it's going to be great. But the family, I'd rather have him, really elaborate for you guys. And I think all of your listeners and everybody in Indianapolis will be blown away.
Coach, I want to go back to something you said at the start, and maybe any conversations you had with Chris Ballard during this process on these guys, because I remember when the Colts drafted Anthony Walker in 2017. You talk about someone that I think Ballard said he's going to take his job one day, just in how intelligent and how important he was for you guys, and obviously he's had a great NFL career. So, What did you tell Chris or anybody associated, I guess, with the Colts when they asked you about Tommy and Evan?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, again, like most organizations, but when the Colts come through here, their area scouts, and then you could tell, when all of a sudden it goes like director of college scouting, and it starts to move up the corporate ladder there, so to speak, in the scouting world. They're always incredibly thorough, and for us, what makes it so fun working with our colleagues in the NFL regarding our players is it's so easy to be honest. We don't have anything to hide with our guys, and so the conversations are pretty straightforward. And it was like, hey, listen, this kid's not even, with Tommy in particular, he's not even close to what he's going to be. And if he does declare, which he ended up doing, you're going to see someone who's going to put up pretty special numbers. What those are specifically, we don't know, but we thought everybody would be impressed. And then, like I said, Tommy first goes to the Senior Bowl and just shows off his explosiveness and his violence and his physicality, and then goes to the Combine and puts on, one of the best, if not the best ever, as a defensive tackle from a standpoint of performance. So he's just scratching the surface. He's going to be a guy that we believe is going to play for a long time. But Chris is a pro's pro. He and his staff are phenomenal. There's nobody better in the business, and it's just been a privilege to get to know him and his staff and the way the Colts organization goes about their business.
When they go about that business and asking you, Pat Fitzgerald, about players, I mean, whether it be these two or other players, maybe they even ask you about guys you saw on the opposite side from around the league, I don't know, but what % of the evaluation that the Indianapolis Colts do you feel like is non-football related? In other words, getting to know the person that they're getting and the commitment.
Very high. The percentage would be very high. You'd have to ask Chris specifically on, kind of what they and how they want to do it. But it is very evident the Colts are looking for a very specific person. They want to create a culture in the organization that I think starts, just me as an outsider, it starts with having just incredible people in the organization, and at that core is the locker room. And we've been very fortunate. You mentioned Anthony Walker. I mean, you guys have drafted 3 of our captains. I'll just say that. I think that's valued. I think that there's a lot of synergy in the way that we look at high school recruits, the same way that kind of Chris and his staff look at college prospects. That it's there's certain things you can see on tape, but more importantly, when things get challenging or things get successful, who is this young person going to be? And they usually revert back to that regardless. And, you guys have taken 3 of our best that I've ever had the privilege to coach. And I look forward to these 2 guys making an instant impact in the organization this year.
One of the guys, too, while we have you here, Coach, that I wanted to ask you about, just because he's from the area, and I think his story is fascinating because it was so circuitous. And Hunter Johnson was a young man that was the number 1 recruit in the country coming out of high school, goes to Clemson, gets in the portal, goes to Northwestern, portals back to Clemson. Mm-hmm. Was he – I don't mean this to be harsh on him. I don't know the young man. I'm not going to say was he misevaluated. Yeah. But how does one go from being, the number 1 can't-miss player to a guy that is essentially each place he goes kind of vying for time?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unfair expectations put on young people in high school. I think that's number 1. First of all, an unbelievable young man. I mean, incredible. And, recently married and was awesome while he was here. And, earned the starting job twice. To his credit, he was, right there, and it just didn't work. And, I got asked kind of the same questions, and I'll project it back to me. I'm a 2-time All-American. I don't get drafted. Things happen. Sometimes it just happens where it just doesn't all work out. But he put everything into it that he could. I hope and pray that he has no regrets. And I think he just gave everything he had. And, as all of us end up eventually doing to play this great game, we get welcomed to the greatest retirement club in America, and that's called Retired Football Players of America Association. And for some of us, it's grade school, some of it's high school, some of it's college, some of it's pros. And Hunter is a great person and was a great player for us. And we were just thankful to have him be a part of our program.
Well, I think the fact that he was welcomed back to Clemson shows that clearly there were no character issues there, right? I mean, you know what I mean?
We wanted to have him come back here, and it was a great situation. I think he kind of went down there and was a pseudo GA. I know there was a very significant other in his life that was from Clemson, South Carolina, and I couldn't move Northwestern to Clemson, so. It's like, dude, yeah, absolutely. And I think if you got both, all three of us, myself, Hunter, and Dabo in a room, it would be one of those bro fests, where I think we all love each other, and I know Dabo and I both think the world of Hunter, and I'm just thankful he was in our program, and I'm thankful that he touched our lives, and I had a chance to coach his older brother Cole too. So I mean, it's a great family, and. He did a great job for us and was an awesome teammate, and just really thankful to have him be a part of our program.
Lastly, I got to ask, Coach, I went to the Birmingham Barons game. I was in Birmingham for IndyCar over the weekend. Went to see the Birmingham Barons on Saturday. They're the AA affiliate. Are they better right now than your White Sox as the AA team?
Is that because of the Cleveland comment earlier?
I just read you're a White Sox fan. I mean, I know you sang "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" at Wrigley, and then people are like, "Well, wait a minute, this guy's a Southside dude, so he's a White Sox guy." So I kind of like the White Sox. They're struggling, but I kind of like going to games at the park there.
Yeah, well, we call it white. Yeah, I mean, it's I think guaranteed right now. It's been a little.
I mean, I still say Comiskey, but
Comiskey. Yeah, my dad calls it Sox Park. It is what it is. Yeah, man, I'm a Chicago fan. I mean, I've got some buddies on the South Side that every time I sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" at Wrigley, I get the hate text, and I get it, and I love those guys. They'll always be my boys, but we live in a pretty cool place. I mean, we're going to play again against Iowa at Wrigley this year. We're getting ready to redo Ryan Field, and so we'll be, displaced for a couple seasons, and. The T's are getting crossed and the I's are getting dotted, but it looks like Wrigley's going to be in the plan for that, and maybe some other venues here around Chicago beyond Soldier Field. So, I told my boys, some point in my life, I'm going to see a Red Line World Series where the Cubs play the White Sox, and this city will go up for grabs. Don't think it's going to be this year, though.
Hey, that is smart by you singing at Wrigley. NIL money, whether it's a Cubs fan or a White Sox fan, all counts the same for you.
Listen, dude, if we had NIL in the 90s, man, come on. I would have crushed it.
You would have been banking. Yeah,
I would have crushed it. Yeah.
You'd be set.
Think about that statue Peyton Manning has. I mean, she's probably on the building, with the way Tennessee goes about this thing. But yeah, no, it's great. It's awesome. And, all the football fans in Indy, I'll say this. We've had the privilege of playing the Big Ten Championship twice. And it's been awesome. And the hospitality, the venue is incredible. It truly is a destination that we all are fighting for in the Big Ten. And I can't thank everybody down there enough for the great experiences we've had, and look forward to fighting our tail to get back. It's something special to be a part of it once. To be a part of it twice was surreal, but the next time we're there, we need to get the dub. I mean, I'm getting tired of being I feel like kind of they call me number two. I don't.
Hey, you guys hung in there pretty well a couple years ago.
Yeah, if you're not first, you're last, right? And I was last year, so I'm tired of that garbage too. But it's a great hub for the Big Ten Championship, and just appreciate Udbird's hospitality.
Coach, whenever we have a guy on here that I just feel like is a cool dude, I always say, I was invited to my PBR party. I'm always like, you want to just come over and we'll just hang out and have a PBR party. In your case, you're Chicagoan, so I'll make it an old style party. Diet Cokes are perfectly sufficient if you're not a beer guy. But
yeah, I'm good with beer. Yeah,
I think like you'd be fun to have an old style with. So if I'm in Chicago, we're gonna have an old, or if you come for the Big Ten Championship game, and because I know you have all kinds of free time, then we'll do an old style party.
Yeah, I'm only coming when we're playing. It's like we get to go to the Rose Bowl as Big Ten coaches, and I haven't gone since I played. It's like I don't eat In-N-Out Burger. Like, we got to earn that stuff, when I go out California recruiting. But I'm in, man. Let's do it, and I'd love to do it. And let's find a great charity and do a little fundraiser. Maybe we'll do a watch party or something like that. We'll have some fun and get after it, and we'll Uber home. It'll all be good.
That is a hell of an idea right there. Pat Fitzgerald, head coach of the Northwestern Wildcats, again, coach of a couple of Colts draft picks here in 2023. Coach, can't thank you enough. Great stuff, and good luck this fall.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot, and to all of our Cat fans in Indy. Appreciate your support, too. Go Cats and go Colts. Thanks, guys.
Pat Fitzgerald right there on the Payless Slickers hotline. It was that COVID year, but that Big Ten title game against Ohio State, they gave Ryan Day and company pretty much everything they could handle there in that game. I did see Hunter Johnson, who we talked about there. Steelers invite to their rookie mini camp for Hunter Johnson. So what you'll see later this week, you'll see a lot of invites to rookie mini camp, not an undrafted free agent, not a draft pick. Each team probably has about 20 or so invitees, and typically, at least speaking for the Colts, a couple of those guys end up then getting on the 90-man roster after the weekend. So it is an opportunity to showcase yourself on the practice field for a couple of days on that.
What if we just do it like Northwestern comes for the Big Ten title game and we just end up doing an old-style party? All the money going to like the Children's Bureau or
that sounds like a hell of an idea.
Firefly or something like that.
Game for it sounds like.
I love the Wrigley thing for Northwestern.
Yeah. Now, was it Notre Dame and Northwestern that played at Wrigley and they could only go in one direction?
No, it wasn't Notre Dame.
I think it was Northwestern in Illinois.
Okay, and they could only go in one direction though, right?
Yeah, which was
didn't
weird
Purdue
because
play him last year up there?
I believe so. But yeah, I mean, the Bears played at Wrigley Field before Soldier Field, and how they only were able to do one goalpost.
Wrigley Field for a long time. This may still be the case. Wrigley Field has hosted more National Football League games, I believe, than any stadium in the country.
I believe that's correct, yeah.
I mean, it may have been surpassed by now.
Scotty question.
Probably a pop quiz question.
Patrick tweeted this. Over under 3.5 games until Anthony Richardson is starting.
Under.
So basically, do you think he will start a game in September?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would probably
When does the schedule release?
Next Thursday.
Is that for sure? Because I heard that was rumors. Is that for sure now?
I don't know if we've got like an NFL announcement about it, but I believe that is the early conjecture.
So next Thursday is when I let you guys know my vacation schedule because it's going to be around the bye.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
More
catering
than likely,
around the bye? Last year, the Colts had a super late bye into the month of December. AFC North, NFC South. Those are the two divisions the Colts will play here coming up this season. Obviously, Bryce Young at Carolina, Frank Reich. That will be a game that could be a good like Thursday night storyline game.
Thursday night game. That feels like a Thursday night game for sure.
Throw that on there. Pop quiz coming up here in a few. If you missed it, up on the podcast here post-show, Will Hewlett, the quarterback's coach for Anthony Richardson, and then that interview, if you just missed it, Pat Fitzgerald, coach of Adetomiwa Adebawore, the defensive tackle from Northwestern, and Evan Hull, the running back, a couple day 3 picks for the Colts. So that'll be up on the podcast. For now, let's lead off with James Harden on the Morning Checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
James Harden was incredible, and Malcolm Brogdon made one of the dumber plays probably of Malcolm Brogdon's career, which, honestly, when you talk about Brogdon, you think of him extremely smart, not one that turns the ball over a whole lot. He had 1 turnover last night in 33 minutes.
Made it count.
And it went right to Tyrese Maxey with the Celtics up 1 with about 30 seconds to play. And the shot clock, too, was at like 1 second. I don't know. He clearly obviously lost time of that. So that was a huge play, but the biggest play was with the Celtics up 1 and Al Horford on James Harden. Harden did this.
Difference of 2 seconds, game clock and shot clock. Harden sizing up Horford. It's a 3. Good! Harden's got 45! Timeout, Boston!
Celtics had to sit and watch that one go through. Sixers win, 119-115. They take a 1-love advantage. Harden, as you mentioned, finished with 45. Tyrese Maxey had 26. Tobias Harris, 18 for the Sixers. And as you'd mentioned, West Coast Nuggets and Suns, 97-87. Denver winning last night in a game that you almost forget about. And that's just so typical of the Nuggets. I mean, you don't think about the Denver Nuggets, but man, I mean, Jokic with 39 and 16 boards. Aaron Gordon added 16. Caldwell Pope with 14. They got a nice team. They're loaded.
Chris Paul got hurt last night, so we'll see about the groin injury for him. They do have a couple of days off moving forward. Tonight, who we going with? Knicks trying to even up at 1-1, and the Warriors at home against the Lakers.
Knicks are at home, right?
Knicks are at home, favored by 6.5 over
I'll
the
go
Heat.
Knicks tonight.
We'll see about Jimmy Butler's injury situation, Julius Randle as well.
Knicks
Warriors favored by 4.5.
Yeah, Knicks and Warriors.
Mark?
Give me Heat and Warriors.
It's hard to go against the Heat, man. Every time you think that every time you think they're down and out, they come back and you're just like, man. Major League Baseball. 5-1 Cubs over the Nationals yesterday. It was the Padres 8-3 over the Reds. 3-game win streak now for the Pods. Dodgers over the Phillies 13-4. Toronto short end against Boston. Red Sox win at 6-5. Guardians over the Yankees 3-2. Apparently that's Pat Fitzgerald's favorite team, the Cleveland Guardians. And the Astros 7-3 over the San Francisco Giants.
That probably covers everything. I guess a little bit of NHL.
Oh, yeah.
Did
Game 7 yesterday.
Devils get it done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they shut out the Rangers 4-0. So that was.
So do we have to redo our?
The devil, buddy. We're number one. We beat anybody. We're the Devils. The Devils.
So let's check out the NHL playoffs now, okay? The way that they are set. So the Devils have advanced. That's right.
Correct. Yes.
Devils
they won
and
Game
Hurricanes
7 last night. So yeah, they're taking on the they're taking on the
Devils and Hurricanes.
Carolina Hurricanes. Yes.
Tonight it'll be the Panthers and Maple Leafs. Those are your 4 out of the East, and then out west it'll be the Kraken and the Stars, and Edmonton and Vegas.
Oh, Oilers all day, buddy. That team was Edmonton ain't nothing without the city of Indianapolis.
I'll go the Hurricanes.
I've been an Oilers fan for years.
Give me Carolina.
Back when they bought Gretzky and Messier's contracts, all Oilers, all in. I love the mall there. I went on a roller coaster. They have a roller coaster in the world's largest mall in Edmonton, and I was sitting there looking at the roller coaster inside, and there was some guy next to me, and I'm like, I'll ride this thing if you do. And he's like, okay. And they take your picture and give it to you, so I have a picture of me going down the hill with some guy from Peru. No, Portugal. He was from Portugal.
Well, I'm glad he was very memorable.
Yeah.
He was. I have the photo at home. The two of us. The guy looks like he's about to puke, little Portuguese fella, and we're riding just two guys hanging out riding a roller coaster at the mall, getting ready to hit Bath and Body Works.
Mark, you got a favorite series?
I don't know if I have a favorite series. Probably
the Kraken and the Stars.
Panthers, Maple Leafs. I think I want to see if Florida can ride it after they knocked out the Bruins, the number 1 seed, and all that stuff. And then plus the Maple Leafs are always fun. Toronto fans have been starving for a contender, so.
I've been waiting to dust
Panthers,
off
Maple Leafs.
I've got an old Oilers sweatshirt I've had for years. Been waiting.
I thought it was a Flames sweatshirt you had last year.
Well, I like the Flames too, but I've been a big Oilers guy.
He's got one of those like removable decals. You can just change the.
Honestly, the
Go
East
Flames.
teams, certainly the Maple Leafs history, but Panthers, Hurricanes, and Devils, there's not a lot of recent history there.
Scotty disagrees. He's like,
Recent?
no, that's not correct.
Hurricanes, yeah. I'm certainly Kraken. Don't have that out west. We'll see if Vegas can get it done as they will take on the Oilers. So those games, again, 2 tonight and then 2 tomorrow.
Wait, are the Dallas Stars in there, did we say?
Stars and Kraken, right?
Yeah, that just feels like a United Football League game on USA Network or something.
I like the Kraken logo.
It's okay. I don't like the colors, but the logo is pretty cool. They did a good job with it. It looks like a demonic seahorse, but that's cool. That's what it is, I guess, right?
All right, tonight, or right now, I should say, it is time for the pop quiz. So 317-239-1070. Yesterday, I thought it was the easiest pop quiz in the history of Scotty Johnston. Scotty, today? A little harder.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah, 4.
239-1070. Give us a call now, and we will get you lined up for the pop quiz on a Tuesday, and a good-looking one here on Kevin and Query, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
107.5 The Fan. Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with Kevin and Query. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
All right. It is time for the Pop Quiz here. 317-239-1070. What'd you say was the hard one?
Number 4. Unless you go to Costco.
No. I see you there.
I see what you did.
Makes sense.
Great samples.
What were you saying, Anthony Richardson jersey number?
I had heard that Anthony Richardson will wear number 5 as a Colt.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he wore in high school, right?
I don't know about high school. I thought he said it was his first ever number in football.
If you were an athlete, what number would you wear?
00.
Mark?
7.
Okay.
I think a lot of it depends on the position. Now, the NFL seems to be a little bit more open-minded to letting players wear different sorts of
If you're
numbers,
a quarterback,
right?
what would you go with? 7, Mark?
7, sure.
What would you be?
Yeah, 00.
I'd be 3.
Yeah?
Yep. Although, if I was a basketball player, I'd be 3, but if 3 was taken, as opposed to getting into a bidding war, I'd just take 40. Those are my 2.
With that ego, you're not letting 3 go. You're getting that guy.
Is that a
kicked off
Jay
the team.
Edwards, Calbert Chaney?
3, actually. Thank you for asking, Kevin. Jay Edwards is a huge part of it. My favorite player at IU is Jay Edwards. He was number 3. Also, I am the 3rd child. I was born on the 3rd. And my very first Indianapolis 500, I watched Bobby Unser win in car number 3, and it was his 3rd 500.
Boom, boom, boom.
So there you go. And my birthday is 9/3, and 9 divided by 3 is 3.
Look at that. Yeah, should we just get number 3 on?
I was born in 72. If you add the 7 and the 2 together, you get 9. Also divisible by 3.
Mark, number 3?
Sure. Cody.
Cody.
Hey.
Cody, that's a great name. I like the name Cody.
You ever been to Cody, Wyoming?
No, I have not.
If I go there, do you want me to steal you the sign that says "Welcome to Cody"?
Yes.
Okay.
Cody, who's your favorite athlete of all time?
I would say probably Peyton.
Okay.
How old a fella are you, Cody?
33.
33. Okay.
Cody, when's your birthday?
June 17th, 89.
There you go. Well, happy birthday next month.
If you were going to, Cody, become an NFL quarterback, what jersey number would you wear?
Probably 7. Lucky number.
Oh, that's cool.
Cody, are you from around here?
Yeah, Beach Grove.
Nice.
Graduate.
The Hornets?
Yep.
Now, did you go to Beech Grove High School?
Yes.
What year was Katie Gerald's? Was that before you?
Yes, but I went to all her games. It was pretty awesome.
I mean, that is the most dominant high school performer. She or James Banks are the 2 most dominant high school athletes I've seen in Indianapolis. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that one game where she scored, where she got fouled in the 3 and then hit the 3 free throws, but to send it.
I mean, that's like that has got to be the most underrated, iconic moment in the history of Indiana high school athletics.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
When you were there, Cody, the boys basketball team won a couple sectionals, right?
Yeah, I was on the freshman squad and then didn't make it past then, but.
Yeah, John Hart, right?
Yep, John Hart went to Purdue. Yep.
Remember the game when they forgot to put John Hart's name in the scorebook and they got technical for it?
Really?
Remember that at Purdue?
That's not good.
Yeah.
Cody, what line of work are you in now?
Work on for like access, like mobility stuff. Work on elevators, stuff like that.
Is that Otis? Do you work for the Otis folk?
No, it's like a residential only.
Okay, gotcha.
Company.
Well, Cody, appreciate you calling in. Jake, you want to throw number 1 towards Cody?
All right, here we go, Cody. The Oakland Athletics own the worst record in Major League Baseball. They are 6-23. Who is the second worst team in the majors? Is it the Kansas City Royally Screweds, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Chicago White Sox, or the Colorado Rockies?
Go with A.
Okay.
I'm still cleaning up from the big crowd at the draft. All right, on number 2 here, Cody. On this day in 1920, the first game of the Negro National Baseball League took place. Where was this historic game played? Pittsburgh, Chicago, Kansas City, or right here in Indianapolis?
not a big baseball fan, but I'm going to say Indianapolis.
You're a smart fella. Cody, were you valedictorian at Beech Grove?
No.
Question number 3 for you, Cody. Anthony Richardson is the first quarterback taken by the Colts in the first round of the NFL draft since Andrew Luck in 2012. Luck, of course, was the first Colts quarterback taken in the first round since Peyton Manning in 1998. Who was the last quarterback taken by the Colts in the first round before Peyton Manning? And it happened actually a year after you were born.
I'm going to say Jeff George, just because you always talk about it.
Yes, Cody. All right, number 4. Anthony Richardson wore number 15 at Florida. That number is currently available on the Colts website. Name the last Colts QB to start a game wearing number 15. Was it A, Scott Tolzien, B, Josh Freeman, C, Mike Kirkland, or D, Earl Morrall?
Shot in the dark, Josh Freeman.
You said Freeman?
Yeah.
All right, question 5. Going back to the Colts' first-round draft picks.
Era.
John Elway retired on this day in 1999. He, of course, was the first-round pick of the Colts in Baltimore when he refused to sign with them, and then, of course, they ended up trading him to the Denver Broncos. Which of the following did the Colts not get from Denver in return for John Elway? A, now, so you're looking at the one outlier here, okay? Offensive tackle Chris Henton. B, Denver's first-round pick in 1984. C, Denver's third-round pick in 1984. Or D, quarterback Mark Herman.
Let's just go B.
The first-rounder?
Yep.
Okay.
So jersey 15, jersey number 14 for the Colts, his 23rd birthday today.
Really? Levon Brazil, right?
No. Alec Pierce. I don't think that's a
He's
very
gonna be a good player.
number for a wideout, 14.
Yeah, it's an odd one.
I guess Stephon Diggs is pretty good, though. All right, Cody, nice work. Kansas City Royals, second worst record.
C, correcto.
Indianapolis for the first
The
correct.
ABCs, by the way, which was named because not the ABCs, many people think it's just the ABC simplicity. The American Beverage Company was the title sponsor of Indianapolis's Negro League teams. They had 2 teams. They had the Clowns and the ABCs. The ABCs probably the better of the 2 franchises. The Clowns were more of like a vaudeville act. The ABCs not only won championships, Oscar Charleston played for them. They played their game at Washington Park, which essentially is the grounds of today's Indianapolis.
Yeah! Really? I still see some ABC's shirts around.
It's cool stuff for sure.
Last quarterback taken or in the first round before Manning, yes, it was Jeff George.
Yeah.
Question number 4, I gave the Costco hint. Mike Kirkland started 2 games in jersey number 15 in 1978.
A lot of Kirkland brands on that list.
You don't get to come back tomorrow. You don't even
Earl
get
Morrall
a
was a good quarterback. Actually, Earl Morrall went to the Super Bowl with 2 different franchises, filled in admirably when Johnny Unitas was hurt, and then also filled in and helped the undefeated Dolphins before Bob Greasy returned and they won the Super Bowl. When the Colts traded John Elway, by the way, they received Denver's first-round pick in 83. They used it on Chris Henton, who, ironically enough, was then traded later for Jeff George. They used the first-round pick in 84 on Ron Solt, who later cut his finger and 19 steroids fell out. And then they also got Mark Herman. So they did not get Denver's third-round pick in 84.
Josh Freeman, by the way, was number 5. In case anyone forgets that season finale back in whatever year that was, 2015-16. Number 5, Scotty, Josh Freeman, Drew Stanton. Anybody else that Anthony Richardson will be following? 5 seems like a good kicker number.
That's a good question there.
Kerry Collins, 12 here, 5 with the Giants. So, yeah, when the Colts get on the field for rookie minicamp coming up on Friday, it sounds like the number 5 jersey for Anthony Richardson. Cody, appreciate you calling in, and go Beech Grove, go, and we will round things out one final time here on Kevin and Corey.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. You're driving along and
An inquiry on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
This is a good one from Greg Poley. I think Anthony Richardson will take number 5. It all makes sense. Colts knew they were going to take Richardson, and he wanted 5. Gilmore wanted out, so they traded him to the Cowboys for a 5th rounder. Everybody wins, all associated with the number 5. There you go.
I like that. That's some good thought process. As my microphone breaks.
Stunner.
Did you see the Colts player, Jake, who will be doing the same thing you're doing next Wednesday?
Having lunch at the Hip Hugger?
Well, I don't know if you want to go down that route for Colts players.
So a Colt is graduated from college on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Alec Pierce.
No.
Kevin is delicately switching microphones here.
Yeah.
Is this a prominent player?
Yes.
Quiddy Pay.
No. He's been with the Colts for quite a while.
Did he begin with the Colts?
No. No, he did not.
DeForest Buckner.
No.
I give.
Kenny Moore.
Oh, that's cool.
Kenny Moore from Valdosta State, graduating this weekend.
Now, do you get to keep the little scarf dealio that has the school logo on it?
I felt like the scarf I did keep. Yeah, I think so. I feel like turning the tassel's the big thing, right?
Yeah, and the color of the tassel reflects
I forgot about
what
that,
degree it is. Is that right?
I think that's correct.
You turn it from the right to the left or the left to the right. You go from the right to the left, right?
Yeah, I kind of forget that part of it. You ever been to the Kentucky Derby?
I have never been. I have always wanted to go. I have a great respect for it and I think it's because of my affinity for the 500.
Sure.
Having an appreciation for what it means to people there. My old Kentucky home gets me every year.
I love the pre-race stuff.
I'm obsessed with Secretariat.
50-year anniversary, Jake.
I know. And I mean, going down to the farm where Secretariat was sired and later retired was pretty awesome. As a matter of fact, when you go down there, they tell you the story about, Sham was Secretariat's big rival. And Sham was one of the all-time great racehorses, just had the misfortune of being in the same class, if you will, with Secretariat. And when Secretariat was retired and was living back in, I believe it's called Claiborne Farms in Paris, Kentucky, he had a pasture where he basically hung out. Of course, he did not have great stud success, truth be told, Secretariat, but they, late in Sham's life, they brought Sham, and again, this story probably gets embellished, but it was fascinating to me. When you're on the tour, they tell you this. Late in both Secretariat and Sham's life, Sham was brought to Claiborne Farm, I would assume for studding purposes, but Secretariat was in his pasture, and there's another pasture right next to it. And of course, it's all separated by one long wooden fence. And they let Sham go into the pasture next to Secretariat. And Secretariat was like laying down or standing in the field, I guess would be standing. And Sham walked up next to him, and they both saw each other and nickered, and then paused for a split second and ran 3 lengths back and forth up and down the fence line, aside one another. And Secretariat beat him again. But Sham was a great horse. Secretariat, though, the greatest racehorse of all time. I love the Kentucky Derby, to answer your question long-winded and circuitously, but I've never been because now it's the same Saturday as the Mini. But I would love to go.
Obviously, last year, huge upset with Rich Strike, the 80-1 odds there. Yesterday, they had the drawings of Forte, which I love. Joe Forte at North Carolina. Do you remember him?
I do.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite players growing up. That's the favorite. Is Baffert still banned?
I believe so.
I loved his hair.
I always get Baffert and Dwayne Lucas confused.
Lucas is the cowboy hat, right? Baffert's just got the great hair.
Which one wears the Danny Sullivan sunglasses? That's Dewey and Lucas, right?
Well, I mean, I feel like all of them are wearing sunglasses.
Says Baffert was banned for 2 years on June 2nd, 2021. So this should be his second and final year of being banned.
And what was he banned for?
The horse Medina Spirits drug test.
Yeah,
That's
I was
right.
gonna say.
I mean, listen, they're not. You can't watch the horse 24 hours a day. What they do in their own time.
They're kids get into trouble.
I would say there's a
They're only
lot
3.
of blurred lines in the old horsing industry.
They're only 3 for crying out loud,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So all males in the Derby is the Oaks, the females. Is that the difference between the Oaks on the Friday, the Derby on the Saturday? Is that right?
The Oaks is like their carb day. I know that.
Oaks are 2-year-old.
Yeah.
That it's an age difference.
Yeah.
Not a sex difference.
Now, when horses get banned, they're always depressed. Thus, the long face.
In my opinion, that sucked.
Going out with a bang here.
I don't know if I followed that one.
Okay.
So yeah, Kentucky Derby coming up. Mark, we're gonna try and get somebody on from a
We'll try to get somebody.
gambling standpoint. Obviously, last
Jake
year.
wants me to probably get a hat person on to discuss the hats that people buy.
Well, the hats are certainly something. It's kind of like the Met Gala last night, or James Harden walking into the TD Garden last night.
If you had a racehorse, what would you name it?
There was a really good name I saw in this year's field. Practical Move. I like that.
That's a good one.
The other name I liked this year was Angel of Empire.
See, I've always thought Unequaled Equine would be cool. And then this one, now, I can't say this on the radio, but I always thought that'd be a good name for a racehorse. Don't you think?
Well, you can say that on the radio.
What is it?
Yeah, I don't know that you can. It's got some.
Oh, that's 100%.
Oh, that's fine.
I don't want to steal your name. I'll let you take the mic.
I'll let you say it, Mark, so that you can get the violation.
Me? Oh, thank you for throwing that softball. Hung like me?
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's fine.
Okay.
Upper quartile would be mine.
See where Jake's
Upper
mind
quartile
is
or
when it
educate and
comes to
entertain. That's where I'd go.
Educate and entertain?
Yeah. Maybe have 2 horses. One educate, one entertain.
Oh, okay. Kentucky Oaks is for fillies. The Derby can be either sex. Thank you here from IndyCar Complainer on Twitter. There we go.
Now, Steve says if
that.
you've never been to the Derby, you need to go. Run your 13 miles on Friday, then go to the Derby on Saturday. I could have done that 10 years ago. I'm going to be way too sore. I don't know that I'll be able to walk across the stage on Wednesday after running the Mini on Saturday.
Well, they can wheel you up there. I'm sure you're not the first person to go to the hip hugger and be wheeled, somewhere after that.
Probably right.
I love the call of the Derby.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
The down the stretch, and I think the announcer of the Derby, I think is a very difficult job. I mean, you're talking about identifying cars, Jake. I mean, I know there's paint schemes that are very similar, but boy, I mean, you're just at the mercy of a little bit of a color, and sure, their horse has a little bit of a different tint, but it's not like these jockeys are giving you a whole lot of difference.
I remember the first year that we did MotoGP, they brought in an expert analyst. I was calling the race from the roof of the pagoda. He's like, now, Pedrosa's bike has the small orange stripe on the front left fender. And I'm like, yeah, okay, man. The guy that did Chick Anderson, I believe was his name, who was the original Kentucky Derby broadcaster on NBC in the Secretariat era and Seattle Slew and that group in the 70s. He was kind of the original, broadcaster of it all. And he's from Indiana. I don't know if he's from Indianapolis, Beach Grove maybe, or somewhere.
He's
in
current?
Indiana. No.
Oh,
this
way
is like back when the Derby really became a TV event. He was kind of the first guy.
And the Derby's what?
To do it all.
40 years older than the 500?
That sounds 160 something. Is that what they're up to?
I think we're approaching 150.
Is that what it is? Okay.
On that end.
I mean, it's great.
The only thing to make a mint julep better would be to put mayo in it.
So now, okay. Should we do on Friday? Should we try mint juleps? Because I've heard they're terrible.
They are. I mean, and I like bourbon, but no. It's way too much leafy for me.
Have you had one, Mark?
I don't think I have, no.
Okay.
I think a little douse of mayo would help it.
You just stick with that.
Yeah, we will. Podcast, Pat Fitzgerald, Will Hewlett, the quarterback's coach.
What the hell, man?
For
That's
Anthony
what you say when you eat mayonnaise.
Richardson. Everybody have a great Tuesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 7 a.m.
93.5 and 102.